Hello, Booktube. Well, not that anybody's here. um, I set up a live stream hours ago, like a good boy. I wanted everybody to have all the time in the world to prepare, and then it didn't work. Second time in 3 days where it didn't work, where I hit go live, and the circle saying you are going live just spun forever, just kept spinning forever. So I had to shut everything down and check everything and check all my levels and check the computer's viability and output and input and whatnot. Ridiculous. Am I going to have to do a quick recension of all the laws of nature before I do a live stream? I can't assume that anything is going to work from one computer to the next. Anyway, I'm here, and I'm assuming I put a note in the aborted live stream, so that I'm assuming everybody who was there is just going to pull out of that live stream, go to my channel, and come straight here. I hope that you all do it. It happened the last time. I got my audience back, even though I had to dump them all. I'm feeling a little bit tetchy because I just had a couple of I just ate a couple of nutritious biscuits. Those bland little square biscuits that are really good for you. And all I can think about is something that is mother's milk to me, but no one who's watching this chat will know it or has ever been subjected to it by me directly. All I could think about was Theanovite. Just add water and have as much as you like. Make a pig of yourself. Only one person who's ever been here has been subjected to Theanovite, and it was because he called it up. He found it on his own. I would never have been able to find it. But I have an idea for this Stevestream before we really get going. The really get going part is when I turn it over to the chat and find out what you want to know about AI or Jeffrey Dahmer or whatnot. But I've had a really hectic, chaotic day, which doesn't usually happen. Usually my days are spent here on the fainting couch, reading and writing. The exuberant highlight of a stretch of 2 or 3 hours will be when I go, huh. Today has not been like that at all. And as a result, I did not get the videos made that I wanted to get made. I foolishly left them. I shouldn't have done that. I should have done them first thing in the morning. But I got one of them done. The Your Best Shelf video discussion or non-tag or whatever it is. Too good not to do. Gavin did it from Genre Books. I did that, and that is uploading. That went long, of course. But I didn't. There was another video that I wanted to do, which was just mail. And I didn't do it. And I was thinking, oh, well, you're out of time, because your live stream is going to happen at 7 or 7:07, because of course it didn't work the first time. So every time I do a live stream now, I'm going to have to double and triple check that every system is working. I'm going to have to do that privately on a private stream for myself, just to make sure it all works. I can't just assume that it will, which is annoying. But then I realized as I was getting ready, taking my pants off and getting ready for the live stream, I realized I could simply open mail on camera. These live streams are videos on my channel. People can watch them on my channel. So I thought we'd do that first. That will be our throat clearer before we go to the chat. Will be the mails. Not much, not a lot of packages, but I'm dying of curiosity to know what they are. And I'm not. When this chat is over, there's no way I'm going to make a video. Because that'll be writing time. So we'll just go through these really quick as just a mail haul before we get to the chat. So this first one, I think we've seen this already. This is by Jaap de Rude, Doctors by Nature, How Ants, Apes, and Other Animals Heal Themselves. The answer is by accident. This comes out in early March. Okay, great. My March shelf is shoring up. Ages before the dawn of modern medicine, wild animals were harnessing the power of nature's pharmacy to heal themselves. False. This book reveals what researchers are now learning about the medical wonders of the animal world. In this visionary book, the author argues that we have underestimated the healing potential of nature for too long, and shows how the study of self-medicating animals could impact the practice of human medicine. Okay, well, I will read the book and I will review it, but my snap reaction is straight from Scripture. Get thee behind me, Satan. We do not need any science denial in the 21st century. We have all that we can use, more of it than we could possibly want. That's what the gist of this book is. Do you really need that full body scan? Do you really need that orthoscopy? Didn't we lose something when we left Eden? Utterly ridiculous. This author, probably young. Yes, definitely young. Yeah. The minute that author has a digging, burning pain in his chest that doesn't go away by day or by night, I guarantee you, he's not going to go out into the backfield grubbing for St. John's wort. He's going to go to the hospital where medicine exists. All right, we're after a rocky start, so let's move on to the next one. Before we get to the chat, of course, will be the highlight of a live stream. But let's do this next. Oh, the next one, okay, is translated fiction. I'm getting a lot of translated literature. That's great. This is, oh my God, help us. Oh God, it's translated from the Turkish, and the author said the bad taste to keep his name in Turkish. Yijit Karahamet. Let's say James O'Donnell. His name is James O'Donnell, like a normal person. So this comes out as a hardcover in late May. And I think it's something for the gays. You got to have something for the gays. This is from the folks at Soho Press. In this refreshing, addictive blend of camp and suspense, that will be the day. Camp, that will be the day. James O'Donnell, this is his debut. How interesting. Offers an homage to gay love in the darkly humorous tale of a couple's 40-year relationship imperiled by the boy next door. A wild ride through the summer of love, lust, and lies. This book is a perfect beach read for fans of domestic thrillers, twisted humor, and literature in translation. Okay, just make sure that the beach you read it on is not one of the extensive beachfront properties in the American South. Because the book will be burned, but so will you. So make sure if it's a beach read, make sure you read it in a free state. And it's set on the idyllic Turkish island near Istanbul. The novel proves the saying, there's more than meets the eye. Okay, well, it's May fiction for the gays, Summer House, in translation. And then we have a couple of boxes, and then we will go on to the chat. I wish that I knew which number to look at to see whether or not I have, whether or not my audience has followed me over here. I see that there is a chat, so I'm assuming that they have. But I wish I knew what to look at. Oh, all right. This next one is two things. It's two books. So what have we got here? The first. Oh, fantastic. Okay, this first one is a tiny little thing. It's from Princeton University Press. This is the finished copy, I think. This might be out already, or it might be a February release. This is Colm Tobin, and this is his book on Elizabeth Bishop. So it'll be a study. It's just what is this? 100 pages? Oh no, it's more than that. Well, the pages are tiny though, so it's about 100 pages of a meditation on the poetry and the art of Elizabeth Bishop. Great, fantastic. Can't wait to get to it. Hope he doesn't disappoint. And then this next one is wrapped in plastic. We don't want books wrapped in plastic, do we, baby bean? even the bean is confused by that. Why would you wrap something in plastic for a mail haul? So let's get this out into the open air and see what it is. Ooh. All right. This is also translated. This is by Peter Zenzi, and it is The Powers of Reading, from Plato to Audiobooks. Tiny little thing. So once again here, I know that I'm beating a dead horse, but that is not a whole night's reading right there. I won't be doing it because some of these are down the line, but I don't have a sheet for either of these, either on Elizabeth Bishop or this thing, both from Princeton. Oh, this is the Zone Books imprint of Princeton, but this is a book about reading. We'll see. These things are usually Hallmark card, bland and shallow, or they are hyper academic and intentionally unreadable. I've read almost none that are down the fairway, so that they're for readers, which is what they should be for. So we'll see. I don't have a date for it, but it's all about reading. And And then we have the final thing here before we get to the chat, a bigger, heavier box. I'm guessing that this is probably a finished copy of just one book. Let's take a look and see. Let's find out together what this is. Oh, all right. Didn't know I was going to get this. Okay, this comes out on February 18th. Okay, this is the next book in this series. This is Dragon of Black Glass by James Rollins. I read and liked and reviewed the first book in this. It is only 2 books, isn't it? Oh no, it's not. No, it's not. There's there's lunar surface end papers there. Yeah, there's okay. So I might have missed one. The Starless Crown I read and reviewed, and then there was a Cradle of Ice, and now there's a Dragon of Black Glass. James Rollins' return to epic fantasy. So this is book 3 in the series. I've kind of sort of made a loose mental decision not to review books 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in series anymore, just not to do it. But I might make an exception because I really enjoyed the first one of these. I'd have to look for, maybe I was sent the second one. But what are you possibly going to be able to tell me about the third book in a series here? With the apocalyptic threat of moonfall looming ever closer, right? That's the thing that animates the action of the first book, is that the moon is falling out of the sky very slowly but very surely. Nyx and her allies must venture into the eternally sun-blasted lands to search for the ancient weapon buried untold millennia ago. Okay, yeah, I don't know any of that, so I will have to check with the publishers. Maybe they can send me a copy of what was the second one? Cradle of Ice. Maybe they can send me a copy of that. The first one ended on a cliffhanger. I'm pretty sure that I would remember if I read the resolution to that. But there we go. A Dragon of Black Glass, Powers of Reading, on Elizabeth Bishop. Fantastic. Just fantastic. Summer House by James O'Carroll. This is a translated gay fiction. And then Doctors by Nature. So not a whole lot, but it would have driven me crazy if I didn't know what they were. So that is the throat clearing opening, is the mail. That would have bothered me otherwise, and there's no way that I was going to do a mail haul when I'm done with this video. So now we can turn it over to the chat and see what people are saying. Who is first out of the gate? It's Jared Henderson. It's Let's Build My Empire. AKA is saying, Hail King Donahue. ENT is saying, hi, Steve, so glad you're back. AKA is responding to Jared Henderson by telling him that he loves his videos. Don't encourage him. Sid is saying, YouTube must have had a fit seeing your name together with male empowerment on a stream. I don't think YouTube pays any attention to me. Maximus Stedish says, I'm saddened to see you, a Giga Chad, get repeatedly cucked by the live stream. I thought better of you. In my own defense, I had an unambiguously, intensely Giga Chad moment today. We don't need to dwell on the specifics, but it was direct. I feel certain that the 21st century's idea of men would not have handled that moment the way I did. But anyway, AKA says, Steve, I just completed my first day of veganism on your advice. Well, it's like Alcoholics Anonymous. Just take it one day at a time. And always remind yourself that the back door is wide open. It's not like Scientology. If you decide, I tried this and those taste, keep in mind, it's just taste. It's not anything else. It's not protein. It's not fiber. It's not carbohydrates. It's not any biological need. It's just that you like the taste. And who doesn't like the taste of bacon? But if you decide, I've tried this and I'm sorry, but I really, really miss that taste, then you can go back. The door is still wide open. But try a second day. But anyway, the Fantasy Network is here. Jared, I do not love your videos. And Jared says, likewise. Well, okay. Well, now you're singing my tune. Karen says, so glad you are back. I kept looking for you and missed you very much. Well, that's very nice to see. Summoner says, but nothing else. Read by Fred is here. Happy New Year, Steve. Glad to see you back. Thank you. AKA says, your live stream thumbnails are always the best. Yes. I'm assuming that Mark Richardson is not in this live stream, so I'm free to say that I bet none of you can identify my live stream thumbnail. Can any of you? Do any of you know what it is? No cheating, no image searching. Let's see here. AK says, ugh, books. I thought Blinkist was the true empire builder. Well, Blinkist will save you from the tedium of actually reading a book. And you can go far on Blinkist or short form. You can go far on those. You can position yourself as a bookish influencer solely on the basis of those things. $10,000 a week, $20,000 a week. Book prizes. The red carpet at bookish events with a microphone and a bespoke Dior suit. You can do that on the basis of those things that cut out the middleman of actually reading the books. Summoner says humans heal through cell repair, immunity, mindset, support, rest, nutrition, and medical or spiritual aid. And then a cartoon of some kind. I don't know what any of these cartoons mean. There's no such thing as spiritual aid because there's no such thing as spirits. But the list that you list there, yeah, there's cellular repair and the body's own immune system. And then if you have a problem, there's medicine, Western, scientific, interventionist medicine. And that's it. That's it. There's nothing else. ENT says, hi, Steve. Do you consider Alexander Thoreau a dude, bro? I listened to an interview about Laura Warholic, and he sounded genuinely pissed people couldn't recognize his brilliance. I have never characterized him as a dude, bro, but he is a raging a-hole, and there is a huge overlap between those two things. So, Danger Kid is back. 2 Steve streams in a row, and this time I'm even on time, getting to be old hat at this. Well, better you than me, since I tried a Steve stream just a few minutes ago and it failed. Sid says, opening mail on stream is much better. You can't reshoot the video, and we get unfiltered Steve rants. Well, I didn't do much in the way of ranting this time around, but I couldn't just let a pile of those things sit there. Although, ironically, you know that if you watch this channel, you know that I get all excited for boxes. And ironically, the smallest thing here is the thing that I want to read the most. It's the thing that goes on the list for tonight. J. Scott Phillips is here. I thought St. John's Wort was what you were going to recommend for male empowerment in the aborted Steve stream. Men don't need any more power. Thanks very much. That's my empowerment motto. My empowerment mantra motto is that men don't need any more power. Dylan says, it's always shocking to still see those types of science-denying hippies around. I expect it from a religious perspective, but pseudo-secular science denial feels far too 1968 to still be here in 2025. I think you are wrong about that. I think that, how did you put it? Secular science denial is here in a bigger way than it has ever been before. And it's here to stay in America. Summoner says the reading choices, and then another cartoon. No idea what that means. DZIGIN says, is it me or is Starship Troopers, the book, a huge disappointment? It's not just you. You might want to step quietly when you say that because there's a Heinlein event going on Booktube, but it's not just you. If ever there was a demonstration of my oft abused mantra that the movie is always better than the book, it would be Starship Troopers. Oh my God. There's not even a faint comparison. But anyway, what about the mech suits? Zip it. Dylan says, oh no, the chat jumped early. We barely been at this at all. Let's find Dylan was the person in question here. There we go. He's responding to someone else. I did all that for intramural chat. Rasmus says, it's because of your daily Penguin series that I got the following books. The first poems in English, writings from ancient Egypt, and their Penguin books on dragons and hell. Those are all good volumes. Perhaps, considering how much people talk to me about the Daily Penguin, perhaps I should revive the Daily Penguin. Perhaps the Daily Penguin for a few months. DZIGIN says, which one you like more, V for Vendetta, comic or movie? The movie, easily. Again, just 5 minutes of battle, like what? Okay, all right. Let's move on. Jerome Jacobson says, "Huzzah! It's a Sigma male, Steve, first of the Giga Chad, mightiest of the Alphas. Good to see." The Sigma males and the male empowerment, the manosphere area of the lecture circuit and also of YouTube would have no idea what to make about me. No idea at all. I am, well, first of all, they wouldn't care because I'm old, and that's, you know, your children are supposed to chop you up for cutlets when you get to a certain age in their weird worldview. But even if they had caught me when I was younger, they wouldn't have any idea what to make of me, none at all. And it's the reason is obvious because they're all frauds. It's, anyway, uh, Andrew says, Wrapped in Plastic was a magazine devoted to Twin Peaks, but I suspect you were not a subscriber. No, I was not. Dylan's responding to someone else. Joe's Book and Movie Corner. Great to have you back, Steve. You mentioned in your last stream that you hiked the Appalachian Trail without provender. What is that? Meaning I didn't pack in my food. Let that settle in on you for a minute. Not many people can say they've done that. Auntie Gaia says, hey, Steve, I got a cheap copy of Watership Down. I never got assigned to it in high school. Is it worth a read? I hear it's depressing as all heck. It's depressing as all heck and also bad. So in this case, we can praise your teachers for not making you read it. I would put it in the nearest free library and get something else instead. Let's see here. Quaint and Curious Volumes is here. The channel Right Conscious has declared himself the king of lit bros. I know. During the Donahue Interregnum, are you going to stand for that? Oh, I've watched all of his videos, and he was the primary person that I had in mind when I was talking 2 nights ago about the deplorable response in the dude bro world to the accusations made against Cormac McCarthy. Deplorable, just scurrilous, and he was the one I had in mind, saying, you know, well, are there photos? Is there contemporary recordings? How do we know she's not a skanko? How do we know she wasn't always a skanko? How do we know there isn't that skankos aren't a good thing? And really, what do we mean when we say rape? All that sort of stuff. Like I said, I didn't leave a comment on any of these channels, but with him, particularly with Right Conscious, particularly, I wanted to say you should do 2 things. Watch this video again that you just made, and then delete your channel. And I didn't say either one of those things, but he was on my mind. Aaron Facer says, I really should be asleep right now, but I just wanted to say welcome back, Steve. Well, thank you. Isn't that nice? Jack Simpson says, hey, hi, Steve. I have not been with you for long enough to hear you talk about John Stuart Mill. I wonder if you have repeatedly enjoyed any of his writings, although he is a philosopher. I have enjoyed him. I've read everything by him, and On Liberty, I do go back to it. So I guess I don't hate it completely, or I wouldn't do that. That Brian, I have less than 100 pages left in A Naked Singularity, but put it down for this Stevestream. A tough call, as it is a book of, quote, unsettling oddness and power, as a certain inside cover blurb declares. Are you saying that on the new paperback of The Naked Singularity, I am blurbed? I wish I had a bookstore in Boston. I wish we had a bookstore in Boston so I could go and look. Unless you're not talking about me. You could be talking about Scott Esposito. Will he haunt me until my grave? Oh my God, there is such a long story connected with A Naked Singularity. Oh my God. I got a copy of it. Crappy, cheap, the binding coming off from the text block with barely any handling at all. It wasn't like I read it. Back when when all the mail came at the P.O. box in Kenmore Square, about a minute away from Fenway Park. I used to trek across town to empty that P.O. box 3 times a week. And I would just stand there at the table in the post office. I'd take everything out of their boxes. There was no Booktube then. I'd take everything out of their boxes so that I could stuff it into my bags and stuff it into tote bags. I didn't want to carry the cardboard with me, so I would unpack everything there. I unpacked that thing and I thought, God, this is ugly. And boy, we get a lot of crap, don't we? Because we still do get a lot of crap. And then I reminded myself, no, you read everything that you're sent. The least you can do is that, considering how much reading time you have. So I read it and was absolutely blown away. I wrote a review of it in which I caught the attention of the entire critical world by opening my review with an obvious fact, saying the sheer number of indie published books out there means we are all for certain missing great work. And a couple of other critical venues took that and ran with it. They would not have noticed this book even existed if not for me. Quarterly Conversation by then Scott Esposito, who is no longer calls himself a man, and may not even still be alive. But once upon a time, he had an excellent online literary journal called The Quarterly Conversation. I wrote a number of pieces for him over the years. And he read A Naked Singularity and wrote a glowing review of it that got picked up by slightly more people than picked up my review. And then seemed to forget where he learned about the book. I seemed to forget. So I don't know what the official received text of the history of A Naked Singularity is, but I can assure you beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was the first person to praise it. I was the first critic to praise it. And that led eventually to a snowball effect that eventually got it picked up by a mainstream publisher and reprinted in a very nice edition, a very nice paperback edition. Not that I'm looking for credit or anything, but to learn that I'm blurbed on it would be amazing. I thought I was just memory hold when it came to my connection with that book. Odie says, "Hey, Steve, hope you are having a great night." Well, I am now. This was not a normal day at all. and a good deal of it was not great. A good deal of it was, you could feel it bucking under the surface. A good deal of it was trying to be bad. Trying to erupt into badness. It didn't happen. It didn't work. But now I feel all fine. I have opened my mail and I am talking with my imaginary Booktube friends. Dylan says, "Steve, I was about to go lift weights. I guess I'll have to watch this in between sets." Dylan, a point about your weightlifting that I haven't made in over a year. Pixar didn't happen. Okay. Cole Norden says, "Stumbled upon your Daily Penguin playlist recently, and I've never learned more about literature as a 24-year-old. Well, you certainly be in a better, not that I guess I'm tooting my own horn in this Stevestream, but if I do say so myself, you will learn more about, when I talk about canonical literature, you will learn more about canonical literature from me than you will in school, any school. First of all, I know more about it than any of your teachers do, but much more importantly, I am not opening the door a crack and checking your ID. I'm inviting you in. Come in and experience this stuff. These are just books. Come in and experience them. Maybe I should do another round of the Daily Penguin. Maybe I should do that. Although the people, the vocal minority out there who want the Western Canon Starter Kit sophomore year would go nuts if I did that. Because they want that to happen more than anything else. Damien says, "Thoughts on Penguin's 60s classic series from the mid-90s? We sold them at our bookshop at $1 each. For most they sold well." Yeah, I have, every time Penguin has done something like that, those little paperbacks or the embossed white covered paperbacks or that big box set that they did, every time they have an anniversary, they do something like that. And I've loved them all. I don't keep them. I love them all, but I don't keep them because they are not normal sized. And I end up not knowing what to do with them, not knowing where to find them. So I get tempted, but then I don't do it. Especially those little Penguin 60s, I think they were. Those tiny square things that just had one little bit from 100 different works of literature. I had a whole bunch of those, and eventually I just decided, get rid of them. Just get rid of them. You can't find them anyway, so just get rid of them. Tim's Too Many Books is here. Is the thumbnail from Patrick O'Brien's The Far Side of the World? Nope. Wilson Esquire, "Steve, is that really you? The Lord is risen." Oh dear, isn't it past your bedtime? Dylan says, "In my field, we've always discussed spirituality and what we do promote spiritual wellness. Every time I ask how this applies to atheists who don't believe in spirits, they don't have an answer. Yeah, because it's the religious fundamentalism, the Christo-fascism that is taking over this country, but I would argue large parts of the Western world, just takes that as a given. Well, I'm really open-minded. I want to know, are you an atheist or do you believe in God? And if you say, what God? They stop completely. They stop completely. What do you mean? It's an either or choice. You're either an atheist or you believe in God. My God, the God. You try to suggest to them that millions of people have believed in millions of gods, and that's the last thing they want to hear. They don't even want to acknowledge it. Medium John Silver is here. It's good to see you back, Steve, from your Odin sleep. So, I'll go with that. Odin sleep was kind of neat. Oh, the chat jumped again. But Odin sleep was the last word, and that is very easy to find. So we'll just scroll up here till we find... There it is. AKA is next. Is the Penguin Coghill Canterbury Tales an abridgment? Because it looks a lot slimmer than the original version from Penguin. Depends on what you mean by abridgment. It's a whole bunch of odds and ends that you can chuck into a Chaucer volume. The Coghill Canterbury Tales is definitely all of the Canterbury Tales you need to worry about unless you intend to become a pedant. And you should not intend to become a pedant. DZIGIN says, Steve, the king of protein powder, dumbbell emperor, count of the full body workout, Christo. And then a bunch of little kids cartoons. Jay Rosen ordered a copy of the collected essays of Elizabeth Hardwick. Where do I start? How about at the beginning? They're ships and bottles. You don't need to worry about where you start. It's just, if you order the collected essays, then read it from front to back. Hannah's Books is here. Are the Musketeers Dude Bro? I'm still somewhat confused about what Dude Bro means, and Chads, etc. Care to give me a brief rundown? Do you mean the Three Musketeers? The book, The Three Musketeers? Is that it? Generally not. No, people generally don't. The Dude Bros don't lay claim to them at all. Because, well, there are a whole bunch of reasons. There are a whole bunch of reasons. But they don't like The Three Musketeers because it's long and it's not a puzzle book. It's a straightforward story. They're perfectly happy to sink in time for a 1,000-page book, provided it's all puzzles. Provided it's all things that they can turn and knobs that they can turn and words that they have to remember for 150 pages because it's gonna show up 150 pages later, only written backwards. And you've got to remember that. Talking to them about whether or not those books have any literary merit, you might as well be talking in Swahili. But I can't give you a primer on the difference between Chads and Sigma males and Dude Bros. Because you're an old fuddy-duddy. It'd be impossible. You wouldn't understand a single thing. AKA says 1984 or Brave New World. I would say Brave New World, but they're very much of a muchness. Yeah, and you have to read both. So Sid says, I watched Starship Troopers for the first time last year, and it's simply the coolest movie ever. Well, if you were a YouTuber and you said, I've watched this for the first time, I would say, no, you didn't. Because literally every single YouTube video in which the people on camera claim they are watching such and such for the first time, literally every single one of those videos, the people are lying. Which is kind of amazing, because that's not true with anything else. Surprising my dad on his birthday, not all of those videos are lies. Most of them are. Most of them, you can tell that the dad is not surprised at all, that this is rehearsed. But not all of them are. Every first time watching video is a lie. Every single one of them. But you're not on YouTube, you're in my chat, and you're saying you watched it for the first time last year, and I agree with you. It is just about the coolest movie ever. AKA says, oh my, yes, definitely revive the Daily Penguin. Yes, more Daily Penguins, says Damien. Starship Troopers movie, then some sort of symbol, and then the word book, and then a cartoon. Oliver Anderson decided to write his addition to the chat in English words. I would be in favor of Revive Daily Penguin. You could extend it by talking about volumes you wish were penguins. Oh, there are plenty of penguins that I could do that I haven't done without going hypothetical. Colin says, just got DC Finest Edition Green Arrow, The Longbow Hunters. What did you think of Mike Grell's run on Green Arrow? I hated The Longbow Hunters. And I bet you can guess why. Even though this is a male empowerment stream, I'll bet you can guess why. Because it's rampant, corrosive sexism towards Black Canary. I remember reading that, getting to that point in the story when it was coming out, and thinking, what? What the heck are you talking about? Uh, I didn't like it. He's a guy that shoots bows, he shoots arrows. Take the bow and arrow away from him. I didn't like it. I don't like it. I don't yet have a DC Finest volumes. I've seen the ones that Mike has held up on his channel, but I have not got one of my own. I think it's inevitable I'm going to get the Legion one. Zap goes the Legion. I just haven't done it. That's all. Danger Kid is back. I got my own bit of mail today. Gorgeous Centipede press edition of Kathy Koja's Bad Brains. Been years since I've read it. We'll be diving in after the stream. Well, who knows how long the stream will go? You might not have any time. After all, you've got your precious 10 hours of unconsciousness to deal with, right? But what Centipede Press is ringing a bell, but not a big one. Mike Jr. says, hey, Steve, I've been looking for a book about Al Qaeda and everything that's led up to 9/11. Got a recommendation? Well, it's almost a trite recommendation. It has been recommended so many times, but The Looming Tower is a great book. I mean, there are lots and lots and lots of other books, but The Looming Tower has to be my first recommendation there. AKA says, I just read Wuthering Heights and was surprised how uncomfortable it becomes in the latter half. But at the same time, I couldn't put the book down. Yeah, you can't put it down. Can't put down Wuthering Heights or Jane Eyre. Karen says, are women welcome here? Certainly not. So you picked the wrong screen name. Monty Python, right? Are there any women here today? No. Are there any women here today? Coffee says, Happy New Year, Steve. Great to have you back. Contemplating reading Humboldt's Gift. Any thoughts? Don't. Read something else instead. AKA says, I emailed you a couple of years ago in a literature class complaining about how stupid William Carlos Williams' poetry seemed. I'm still baffled how his work can be considered great. Well, two reasons. One is because all of poetry died. It stopped being a serious genre, so anything goes. But two, it's easy. And that's a big part of it. That's a real good reason why William Carlos Williams is taught in to undergraduates, but not Omeros by Derek Walcott, for instance, because it's his poems are easy, and that goes a long way. Aslan says, hello, Steve. So what did you make out of Wind and Truth by Sanderson? I really liked the ending, but thought it was incredibly badly edited, preachy, and cringe. I think I know what you mean. I think I probably could guess the part of the ending that you liked. And sure, but it wasn't the editing that made it preachy and cringe and also slapdash. I'm sure that you felt that while you were reading it, that it looks like you're writing as fast as you can type without ever looking at what you did, never looking back to see what you wrote. It felt that way a lot. It felt that way a lot. It felt like a lazy, fast, dumb book with a couple of redeeming moments, a couple of redeeming sequences. And I know this makes me maybe naive, but I wasn't expecting that from Brandon Sanderson. I mean, I realized that he wrote this volume after he became a multimillionaire, $100 million. So you go from 20 million to $100 million. You might think, those of us who are never going to have $1 million think, what difference could there be? There is a huge difference, a stratospheric difference. And he wrote, this is the first book that he wrote when he has more money than anyone could spend, than any 100 people could spend, and knows it, has it socked away. So I'd hate to think that that's what caused this book to be the way it is. I'd like to think more that it was just a deadline pressure. But then I think, how could it be deadline pressure when he himself alone is able to buy his publisher? So how can he have deadlines? Anyway, Dylan says that right conscious guy is the worst. Not only did he excuse McCarthy's actions, but then he made a video about how dating underage girls is key to modern writers' lives, to important writers' lives. And he's a teacher. Yeah, they almost all do this. The ones that are the worst, almost all do it. And not just with Cormac McCarthy. I mean, famously, you get manosphere pundits like Matt Walsh. The minute somebody that they like is accused of diddling a little girl, they pivot instead of, well, I won't like you anymore, they pivot to, well, are we all anti-diddling all of a sudden? Is that so woke? No, but he keeps doing it on his channel. He keeps doing it, and it always, among many other things, one of the things that annoys me about his channel is the tone of omniscience that he assumes. When, as I've pointed out on this channel, I've made this point many, many, many times. Dude Bro readers are the most cloistered readers of them all. They are the quickest ones to assume that leathered, wise old man tone, but they read almost nothing. Almost nothing. It's a tiny, tiny little sliver of the books that are out there. And all the readers that they would condemn, Dylan, they might not condemn you if you weightlift, but think about, think about Booktube. They wouldn't condemn Ollie because he has a beard, but Sarah at the Book of Schnitter, she's a woman, and she's not a girl, so they would condemn her right away. She reads 100 times more widely than they do, 100 times more widely. Think about Debs at Rainer Reads. It's ridiculous. He takes that tone when he is the most virginal reader in the world. anyway, you don't need to hear me rant about that. Recently, seen reading I'm shocked. I tell you that people don't recognize the Chesapeake whooping the Shannon in the thumbnail. Next stop, Melville Island. Afraid not. Oh, come now. It can't be, one half of the thumbnail can't be that hard. If I'm going to put a sailing vessel in my thumbnail, what is that sailing vessel going to be? There's one sailing vessel, and it is my best friend. And I've sailed on her many times. I've walked her decks. I've tapped on her wood. What is at least one of those vessels going to be? Come now. Andy Guy says, gee, Steve, where did we all of a sudden get this idea that people in their 60s and 70s are completely out of it and ignorant? Didn't we have reverence for the elders for centuries? Well, the reverence for the elders bit is overstated. Usually it's overstated. It hasn't ever really been all that true, except in certain very narrow socioeconomic classes. But nowadays, it's rampant and much, much more open and pronounced than ever. And I realize that I'm courting that kind of reaction because I am on YouTube. I make videos on YouTube, which is kind of a young person's platform. I could make it worse. I could be on TikTok, but I'm on YouTube, and you get somebody to come on to just take a glance at YouTube. They're going to say, "Oh, what's this old guy doing?" But even so, the dismissal is really, really bad. I don't know where it comes from. But anyway, Rasmus says, do you like Bernard Werber's Ants series? Now, as far as talking bugs books go, it's my second favorite to Werner Vinge's A Deepness in the Sky. That Brian says, yes, you are blurbed in my paperback of A Naked Singularity. Am I blurbed by name? I can't be blurbed by name. There's no way. And so it's Open Letters Monthly. That would be amazing. I did not know that was true. I assumed that I was dropped from all the blurb rosters in favor of the bigger venues that all started noticing the book once it went to, was it University of Chicago that first did the paperback? Wow, that's amazing. I'd never see a copy of that in the wild. Never. I might have to buy it. But I am not going to start buying trade paperbacks just because I'm blurbed on them. I'm not going to do that. The only exception to that would be a book that I know I'm going to reread many times. The American People, Volume 1 by Larry Kramer. I have the trade paperback of Volume 2. But I don't have a trade paperback of Volume 1. I don't want the hardcover because I'm blurbed on the trade paperback. And the Volume 1 and Volume 2 of The American People are amazing, incredible, and important books. I'm proud to be blurbed on them. I was proud to review the first one right alongside my friend Sam. We were just, there's two, you can read, you can see, pull up his review of American People Volume 1 and my review of American People Volume 1, and you can see just as a teletype our different approaches to writing reviews of the same book. And in his wheelhouse, fiction, not a Cape Cod book or something like that. You can see it just in an instant what our different styles are like, and I think it's wonderful. I love reading those two reviews side by side. I'm assuming. Oh no, Sam never reviewed A Naked Singularity. I don't think he ever did. But that trade paperback of The American People Volume 1, that I might buy. I would never see it used, but anyway. Anyway, Fall of Smoke says, hey, you sexy influencer, I've noticed more and more that male authors get a lot of backlash for not writing women well, whereas women authors very rarely get flack for not writing men well. Thoughts? Well, the people giving the backlash, one group is more vocal than the other. But the underlying assumption is correct, which is that male and female authors are terrible. Most of them stink. Aslan says, have you ever thought about making a starter kit for weird fiction? No. Dylan says, aside from the KJV, are there any other works of translation that are canonical books in their own right, at least after you've acquainted yourself with whichever translation fits you best? Seamus Heaney, Beowulf, definitely. The Florio Montaigne, the North Plutarch. These are masterpieces in their own right. Chapman's Homer, I would say Chapman's Homer. Maybe even Alexander Pope's Homer. Maybe even that. Pope and Dryden and their ilk are gone. No one reads them for pleasure or thinks about it. But nevertheless, maybe. But the very first thing that came to my mind is the Seamus Heaney Beowulf, which he knew when he was doing it. I'm onto something here. And the minute it appeared, everybody said, hosannas all around. Jared Henderson is back. Inspired by Cuba Fruit. Are there other self-published authors you've been impressed with lately? Nowhere near as much. Cuba Fruit, in addition to being a great novel, Jared is referring to a novel by Alex Rondo, which is available for pre-order on Amazon. But in addition to being a great novel, Cuba Fruit is also much like what A Naked Singularity was, a staring indictment of the current publishing world. Because that manuscript was flogged around 8 ways from Sunday. The current publishing world, the world of agents, had plenty of opportunities to read it and see that it was worth publishing. And if you're not au courant, if you're not of the moment, if they can't picture you on, Lex Friedman's podcast, then there are none at the moment that strike me anywhere near. I do a lot of indie reading, and most of it is terrible. But I'm not bashing indie when I say that, because most mainstream books are terrible too. Leo Percara says, hello, Steve. Do you remember the longest single volume biography you've read, and was it any good? We got this question last night. I think it was a Mozart biography. Pretty sure for page count that would be it. I think it was like 1,500 pages long. And it was too long for what it was, if I'm remembering it correctly. AKA says, Steve, could we possibly get a Mishima video from you one day? Not a chance in hell. J. Scott Phillips, I'm interested in that book on the Celts you had in your mail haul yesterday. Assuming you read it last night, is it worth buying? Hope it's good. I did enjoy it. Yeah, I did enjoy it. It has a lot of competition. There have been endless numbers of books on the Celts, and I have read most of them. And some of them, the subject matter begs for, there was a big book about, 50, 60 years ago called The World of the Celts that was oversized and lavish with artwork. And the subject begs for that. I far be it from me to fault a work of history for being just prose, but when I hate the thought of you spending your hard-earned money. When I'm done reviewing it, I'm happy to send it to you. Sid says, I read and loved A Naked Singularity before I discovered your channel or reviews, but it's funny to think that you were still indirectly responsible for getting it in my hands. Well, you couldn't possibly have read the indie book. You must have read it. I'm trying to remember who picked it up. I think it was the University of Chicago, but I might have that wrong. That might be that might be Garth Greenwell. That might be a little book called Mlinko, Mlinko. A little book that became his breakout thing, but it wasn't to start with. But I think it was The Naked Singularity. But you wouldn't. I have no idea how valuable that indie press would be of A Naked Singularity. Mine fell apart, literally fell apart on me. Anti Gaia says, Steve, do you recommend A Mystery of Mysteries, Mark Dawidziak's book about Edgar Allan Poe, or is it just mediocre? No, I don't recommend it. Johnny says, Steve, are you aware of the channel Book Pilled? If so, what are your thoughts on him? I am aware of it. Not a huge fan. Tolstoy 111 says, I was a bit surprised on your take on Algernon Blackwood. Isn't the story like The Willows a good performance of the proverbial that sort of thing? Sure it is, I guess. As a number of you noticed, my withering condemnation of Algernon Blackwood was largely a withering condemnation of that sort of thing. I guess it works. Sure. It's just you're drooling blob of protoplasm for 9 solid hours on your pillow out of every 24. It's not like that sets you up for a week. And when you wake up, you're groggy and you can't read, and then you go to work and you're doing this or you're doing that, and then you've got your brats, your miserable illegitimate children. You have almost no reading time. Colin says more Daily Penguin series. Oh, and then the chat jumped, so that must be the fates agreeing. Let's find where Colin was. More penguins. That's where we were. So that'll be easy to find. Oh God, there we go. All right, Planet Hamlet from New Zealand. Good Lord, New Zealand. In yesterday's Stevestream, you mentioned a poem that you hated from the early 1960s. I think, if that rings a bell, what was the poem? There's one particular poem, The Hinge, as it were. The hinge on which the world of published mainstream poetry, at least in the American market, turned. It's a bête noir of mine. It was coming up on my Poetry Thursday, so if I return to that volume, we will get to it. I don't want to spoil things. Any of you know American poetry are going to know immediately what book I'm talking about. It's sheer gibbering nonsense, and it's totally revered. anyway, I don't want to spoil it though. Aslan says, I have so many books I want to read. How do I choose what to pick next, Steve? You're not a mood reader? You don't want to be guided by book talk? Well, all reading is mood reading to a certain degree. What are you in the mood for? I would certainly be happy to help you. But usually when somebody says, I have so many books, I don't know what to pick next, usually the problem isn't that they don't know what to pick next, is that they don't feel like concentrating. They don't feel like sitting down and reading a book. And that is something if that's true, that is something you just have to make yourself feel. You have to get that back. Because if it's gone too long, you can't get it back. Follow Smoke says, classic Penguins Steve is a different kind of Steve, different tone. You can tell you love them, and even if you don't, you love that they were published anyway. When I was doing the Daily Penguins, more than a couple of people pointed out, not so much you could tell you love them even if you don't, but I heard that a lot. I had that comment a lot when those videos were new 50 years ago, when those videos were new. People saying, you hold up your dog and you smile, and there are plenty of digressions, and you complain about the traffic noise. But even so, in these videos, I think I'm seeing teacher Steve a lot more than I am in your normal videos. And that gave me pause. That could very well be true. Colin says, what do you think of the 90s Superboy comic series? Help me out here. Is that the clone Superboy? Is that the clone Superboy? I think that is the clone Superboy. If it is that, it was Tom Grummett artwork, and he's great. So I read it right from the first issue. It was bittersweet, of course, because it's not Superboy. It's not The Adventures of Superman when he was a boy, which was the comic book that I loved more than anything in the world. That and the Legion, but the Legion was Superboy, so I got the best of both worlds. But and this wasn't that. This was somebody else. but it had great artwork, so I kept reading it. And I have a lot of those here somewhere. I think, though, I'd have to check with Michael K. Vaughan, but I think that those 90s Superboy volumes have never been collected into one of those huge anthologies. I might get an anthology like that if they did, but I don't think they ever have. DZIGIN says, Steve, why Eagles didn't flew Fellowship to... Okay. I don't know what's going on there. Jenny Jables says, I'm terrified for when the next Cormac McCarthy type thing happens, because the algorithm kept recommending to me the most brain dead Booktube bros I have ever seen in my life. I know they did not acquit themselves well. Not at all. I was frankly disgusted by a lot of them, by all of them that I saw. I didn't see a single dude bro booktuber who watched that story as it was unfolding and said, uh, well, I'm going to have to change my mind about this guy. And I'm going to have to change my mind about so zealously recommending his books. I didn't see a single one that did that. It was really kind of noxious. And I was watching that and I was thinking, not that I mean to climb on my self-pity high horse. Obviously, we're all friends if you're here on a live stream, but I couldn't help but think, okay, that substantial body of people out there in Booktube, especially UK Booktube, who just routinely for a decade now have characterized me as Satan incarnate, as just the worst, woolliest, uh, everyday sexism, y'all, just the woolliest, worst, most inveterate, knee-jerk woman hater of all time, without thinking, without knowing, without ever watching a video. What do you if you think that about me, what do you think about these guys? I I anyway, anyway, Hannah's Books is back. By Musketeers, I was referring to Musk's Six Boys. Oh, I see. Uh, A Case is responding to someone else. DZ Giant is responding to him. Brian Constantine, will you talk to me or are you talking to somebody else? There are whole channels devoted to things like the girl never watched Star Wars. Here's her reaction. I know, and they're all false. Remember that. They're all lying. As I have often said, there's a breviary of fundamental sins that are characterized by our online life, especially by YouTube and the visual medium like Instagram. One of those is anonymity, but another one is that everybody seems convinced that they're a great actor, and nobody is. So, and in addition to that, I mean, I spot lots of like all those minimalism channels that were so popular 6 years ago. They all lying their faces off and thinking that you just won't notice, that you just won't see the tells. I'm good enough actor. I'll make it convincing. Well, and the watch it for the first time videos are the same way. I just crack up when I steel myself to watch them because it's so obvious that they're lying. A couple of times, I admit I have a little advantage because it'll be a guy alone in his basement apartment, and I'm watching this. I've heard of this Lord of the Rings. I thought I'd watch the Fellowship of the Ring for the first time, and it's oh my god, oh whoa, oh I'm losing it completely. And in the background on the bed is a dog, and the dog has seen the Fellowship of the Ring before. And dogs don't have long memories for that sort of thing. So, and with videos like that, I want to say, well, if your dog has seen this before, was he operating your TV when you weren't around? No, he watched you watch this the first couple of times when you were building up your jokes. You stupid liar. Anyway, Sid says, I'm very young, Steve. I promise I'm not lying about watching it for the first time. Oh, I believe you, Pookie. I believe everybody in this chat, except the Spaminator, but he's not here. AK says, Steve, is Jack Edwards a Blinkist user? Well, I don't follow Jack Edwards around into his bedroom. But Ali Abdal, who is now a multimillionaire from scamming YouTube, made a video a few years ago. I did a bro watch video about it, in which he championed something called short form over and over again and lied about it, lied about the fact that that video was sponsored by short form, that he took money from them. Short form is Blinkist. It's basically the same thing. It's the same kind of procedure. And what was Jack Edwards' comment on that video? Booktube will quake. Meaning, I worship you. I want to be as wealthy as you are, and this is the way to do it. If you champion these things, you can't get your credibility back. You can't say, well, no, I did champion them, but I don't anymore. I don't cheat now. But anyway, Aslan says, don't. As to whether or not Jack Edwards is a Blinkist user, I don't advise you to get an account on Blinkist. They're very sticky. They will be sending you junk mail for the rest of the time. But Blinkist, short form, something like that. If you were to get an account on them, they give you a summary of the book and then a few talking points of the book. If you were to get one of those accounts, Blinkist especially, and match those talking points against the things that Jack Edwards says about the books that he claims to read, I wonder what kind of similarity you would notice. But anyway, Aslan says, don't get me started on all the first time hearing Metallica videos. I know, they're all a lie. I just don't know who they fool. And actually, a part of me thinks, a cynical part of me thinks, they're not fooling anybody. It's just a way for people to watch this material without buying it, or listen to this material without buying it. But it's so, That used to annoy me anyway. I used to think, isn't it horrible that so much of, let's say, just concentrate on YouTube, that so much of YouTube is so completely based on lies? And that was before I noticed that now a good solid 80% of all YouTube videos are entirely made by AI. And the AI likes to comment. I've been doing this regularly. When I come across a documentary video that has been researched, sourced, made, scripted, and narrated by AI, no human involved at all, I will leave a comment to that effect in the comments field saying, "Oh, this is all AI. How disgusting!" And it gets a like because even the comment section is being done by AI. Tim's Too Many Books. I have a set of Penguin 60th anniversary playing cards. There are pictures of 54 different books, and there are some very strange choices. This includes The Phantom Lobster by Leo Walmsley. Kevin says you are also blurbed on the Amazon page for Naked Singularity. Weird, brilliant. Steve Donahue, The National. The National. Did I review I thought I reviewed the Naked Similarity for Open Letters. I reviewed it for The National? Oh my. Oh, I'm gonna have to check with my publisher. I don't have a publisher yet, but I will. I have an archivist. I'm gonna have to check with him about where these things are appearing. I didn't think I wrote about the Naked Singularity for The National. How interesting. Anti Guy says, I can't imagine Steve being much of a Metallica fan. No, I have an excellent sense of hearing. It's not vestigial like it is with the rest of you. AKA says, absolutely loving War and Peace, but the few hunting chapters with Nikolai made me uncomfortable with how brutal they were to the animals. Glad the hunt only lasted a short while. Yeah, you have to do that. You have to cross that hurdle with Trollope as well. Because unfortunately, I mean, Trollope when he became a name, when he became really popular, people wanted that. They wanted a classic Trollope fox hunting scene. And it's a horrible split screen because he's really good at it. Even when you're reading those scenes and being disgusted by it, you realize he's really good at it. Dylan says, I've never watched Starship Troopers. My experience with it has been through dude bros and fascists online hyping it as a representative of their beliefs. Have they misunderstood the movie? Okay, I'm gonna try. I can save my yelling at you for Voxer. Well, I am stunned. You would have blown my pants off with that recommendation if I were wearing them. Because you're like 50 and you haven't seen Starship Troopers. But I'm going to go. I can yell at you privately about that. The fascinating point, and I make no other kind, keep in mind, is that the fascist dude bros online who love the movie because they think it reflects their values are not wrong. And yet the movie is great. And you won't know that. You won't know what I'm talking about or how I could possibly thread that needle until you watch it. They're not wrong. And yet the movie is great. I guess anything more than that because you haven't seen it. First time watching. Tori reads, I'm so glad to see you back, Steve. Wasn't that nice? It was a rough January and you bring some much needed solace. That I don't understand. Why? How? What kind of solace am I bringing? I don't get that, but thank you. I thought of you at my used bookstore. I found most of Stephen Jay Gould's essay collections. Oh, really? So at your used bookstore, you found like a row of hardcovers that somebody got rid of? Ooh. Oh, really? Did you get them all? I hope you could get them all. Talk about revisiting them. Oh my. Andy Guy says, speaking of the Loomer Tower, did you like the miniseries of The Looming Tower? Not Laura Loomer. I didn't watch the miniseries. Manny says, what I love, or did I? There was a series about 9/11 that got pulled right away from all services, from all rebroadcasting, because somebody disliked something about it. Well, it was excellent. The series that got pulled that can't be found anywhere was excellent, and it starred, among many other people, Harvey Keitel. Was that the one you're thinking of? Because if that's true, I did love it. I just didn't think that was an adaptation of The Looming Tower. Manny says, what I love about your Daily Penguins is how you refrain from talking about themes. It's like the only thing people that read classics seem to care about. Yeah, it's the people on Booktube, especially, but also off Booktube. It's very much you're opening a door a crack and you're asking for a password. and all the right Kabbalistic utterances about themes or important messages or whatnot. That's your password. Then you can come in. And I don't do that at all. Walt sent me. I fling the door wide open. These things are here to be enjoyed. No passwords, no pedantry. But anyway, Steve Bronstein says, "Hey Steve, is it really too late for Trump to kick Elon to the curb? The mofo is out of control. It is too late." Yeah, Elon Musk and his as Hannah calls them musketeers have hard copy data transferred the whole of the American government's computer infrastructure. They were allowed in, they took it, they copied it, they've sold it, they trade it around, they talk about it, and they can shut it down. But it's not just that. No, it's not. That's the only reason, but that's a big reason. That's a real big reason. That was a stupid thing to do, as stupid a thing as I've ever seen anyone do. For to do that at all, but to do that with a person like Musk, who is obviously insane. Anyway, anyway, Freeman says you have made 265 Daily Penguin videos. Did I really? I didn't even get to a whole year's worth. AKA says having to come up with lengthy essays about a few stupid lines of poetry like William the Red Wheelbarrow drove me insane. That red wheelbarrow. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, the red wheelbarrow that a generation ago, a lot of young people that I knew memorized that thing and would portentously roll it out when they'd had one drink too many at a literary party or something or other. And of course, the proper response to the red wheelbarrow when somebody reads it is to wait until they're finished and say, "No, it doesn't." Much depends. Much relies on this thing. No, it doesn't. uh, Danger Kid is back. Centipede Press is a boutique / fine press, illustrated, cloth bound, stitch bindings, etc. They do a lot of great work with lesser known spec fic. Did not know that. I don't think I knew that. Colin said, just about to start the Edith Grossman translation of Don Quixote. Been enjoying it so far. Do you have a preferred translation? It's that one. It's the Edith Grossman one, and it will be forever. That is, you picked the right one. Sid says, Sanderson lost me with Stormlight Archive series after book 3. First 2 books were very fun, but I'm glad I dropped it after that third one. I think you might be right? The third one definitely was a labored thing. He was counting on momentum. I guess third books always do, but the second book didn't at all. The second book was scrappy. It earned its keep. Follow Smoke says Sanderson hasn't been the same since his secret projects. I think Rhythm of War was the point in which he decided to not give an F anymore. Everything after has been low quality. Well, the secret projects are what changed him from being worth 12 million to worth 200 million. And that changes you. That really does. That 12 million, believe it or not, can go away. 200 million can't. 200 million is a country. Let's see here. AKA says, since you've made 265 Daily Penguins, surely we deserve another 100. Right. That's what I was saying. Not even a year. That does seem, you do want a year of Daily Penguins. I could certainly do another 100. Andrew says, I'll be attending my last lecture on an introduction to Derrida this week. Whew. See how things can go awry during your break. I guess that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. I hope that you are, as the kids say, self-medicating. Danger Kid. I imagine most people would balk at Centipede's price tags, but I figure I could do a lot worse for vices than fancy books at Coke Zero. Yes. Yeah, you could. Tolstoy 111. Wuthering Heights reveals the Philistines like no other. If people complain how toxic the characters and relationships are, I think it's a failing of some sort. Well, yeah, imbecility is a failing. Definitely. Yeah. AK says, I've never read Cormac McCarthy, but after hearing he loves eliminating punctuation, I got traumatic flashbacks to William Carlos Williams and lose all interest in his books. The closest you ever need come to reading Cormac McCarthy is to watch and laugh your ass off at my 4-part deconstruction of The Road. That's all you need to do. DZIGIN. Steve, do you like Brotherhood of the Wolf French movie? Is that the paramilitary werewolf movie? Is that the one of the characters, a werewolf guts him, just swipes across his belly, and he sticks his own intestines back in? I don't know that was called Brotherhood of the Wolf. I might not know what you're talking about. Nine Land 2 says The Return of the King. J. Scott Phillips says Old Ironsides. I don't know if he's referring to the movie or me. Manny says, speaking of slapdash prose, I tried to read Sally Rooney's Normal People recently, and DNF have never felt so good. Everything about that book felt so lazy. Yeah, she's a darling of people who, well, she's one of Jack Edwards' favorite authors. Yeah, everything about that book is bad. Yeah. Echo Fall says, reading Once and Future King at the moment, was enjoying the start, but 30 pages in, Ill Made Night is blowing me away. It's so good. Chevalier El Malfet. It's my first delve into Arthurian stuff. Where should I go next? It's important for you to understand here. No offense to Thomas Mallory, but it's important for you to understand here that it's all downhill from where you are now. The Once and Future King is not only the greatest meditation on Arthurian legend, it's also the greatest fantasy novel ever written. With you, if you're interested in Arthurian stuff, there's plenty of other places to go. Of course, the natural place would be Thomas Mallory, Le Mortateur. But you won't be experiencing anything like The Once and Future King. I'm due for a reread this year. But yeah, blowing you away. Yes, it is. It's difficult to explain to people. People think, oh, it's a King Arthur novel. Okay, well, I know what that is, so I don't need to worry about it. And you don't know what to say to people like that. You are so wrong. You don't know what you're missing. You don't have any idea what T.H. White does with this. But anyway, Stevestream, I noticed you've been saying, oh, come now, the last couple of days. Have you been thinking about watching old Harold Bloom videos? J. Scott Phillips says Constitution versus HMS Java. Yes, indeed. But did you know that, or did you Google image search like you young kids do? The Constitution versus the Java, which Markerson is not here in the chat, but he and I could take you through the battle, minute by minute, captain by captain, maneuver by maneuver. Tolstoy 111 says, is it fair to say that Joseph Campbell has become impossible to take seriously because of Dude Bros? Yes, that would be fair to say. Colin says, what are your thoughts on Boethius' Constellation Philosophy? Is it the only good philosophy book? I like it. I wrote what I consider to be an excellent piece. Usually I don't rate my own prose. I usually don't. That's for other people to do, not for me to do. But I wrote a long piece on the Constellation of Philosophy probably 10 or 15 years ago that I really liked. It was on I think it was a new translation. Yeah, it was a new translation from Harvard University Press, which I have here. I don't think it ever got a paperback, so I don't know if I'm blurbed. But that was a long piece that was wonderful to write. J. Scott Phillips says, by Frank Frazetta. Yes, it's the Constitution versus the Java by Frazetta. Maximus says, I'm halfway through the first volume of The American People. I can't put it down. Oddly love it, but I am so exhausted after picking it up. It doesn't go easy on you as a reader. And oh my God. Well, I don't know, Maximus, I don't know how old you are. Volume 1 doesn't go easy on you as a reader. It is unbelievably good. I thought that Larry Kramer was going to die without writing it. He talked about it forever. I thought he was going to die without writing it. And in the back of my mind, I thought, well, if he does write it as an old man, if he does write it, it will be an old man's book. And it's not. Oh my God, it's not. It's molten fire. But as I won't say exhausting. Exhausting feels wrong, but you know what I mean. It grabs you it works. It puts you through your paces as a book. As much as that is in volume 1, it's 100 times more in volume 2 if you remember the AIDS epidemic. As I do, I lived through the AIDS epidemic, and it is volume 2 is the Iliad of the AIDS epidemic in a way that is, I mean, Larry Kramer lived through it too. He didn't have my freakish immune system though, so he could have died at any time. I just prepare yourself. You're loving volume 1. Volume 2, you're going to love even more, but it's going to destroy you. But anyway, AK says, Steve, do you like the Alec Guinness / Peter Sellers film, The Lady Killers? I find it really fun. It is really fun. Tolstoy 111 says, Margaret Atwood is a good example of a female writer who cannot write male characters at all. Right. We could bat back and forth. Most writers can't do that jump at all. Maximus says, do you prefer Garth's Ovid or Golding's? Golding's. Colin says, what I would give for a pen classic edition of Chapman Homer. I know. I have the was it a university press that came out with trade paperbacks about 35 years ago? And I eagerly gobbled them up, and we got one copy each at the bookstore where I worked, and so I bought them and I immediately ordered them so that we'd have another copy, and I was pressing them on customers. And I had regulars, I had like 2 or 300 regular customers, and they would all say, oh, I know. Yeah, you love to recommend books. I might read Homer at your insistence, but a 500-year-old Homer. uh, uh, Tim's Too Many Books is back. The thumbnail is a reversed version of Old Ironsides versus the USS Constitution versus the HMS Guerriere by Patrick O'Brien. Aslan says, "Do you not like Mishima?" I do like Mishima a lot, but I would never do a video devoted to him. No way. Oh, the chat jumped after Mishima. Well, that should make it easy to find, right? Let's just go back to where Mishima is mentioned. Oh my God, there's a lot of people here. How did all these people get here? There we go. Westfield Space Agency. What do you think of Martin Gilbert's 1-volume biography of Churchill? I've never read it. AKA says, not a Mishima fan. He's like the canonical dude, bro. I thought you'd love him. Anti-Guy says, Steve, I know it's a broad question, but what do you love about living in Boston? It is an impossibly broad question. I know where all the bodies are buried. But Boston is friendly. Irrationally, it's not something that would apply to other people, but I know it really well. I've long sunk in memories, but it's also pretty, walkable, endlessly interesting. Chad Henderson is back. Agreed about publishing Cuba Fruit. Read half last night and woke up thinking about it. At least his agent knew it was good. Editors passing on it is ridiculous. I think the whole thing it is ridiculous, just writ large, that Alex had to publish this himself. It is a stunning indictment of the publishing industry that nowhere along the line could anyone connected with that industry see what I saw immediately when I read the thing, which is that you're scarcely going to read a book that good this year. Publishers used to have readers. They don't anymore. Agents used to have readers. They don't anymore. Instead, agents have convinced themselves that they read. They know how to read. They don't. They're morons. It's Cuba Fruit is a good example. A Naked Singularity is a good example of how if people are complacent about indie books, if people still think, well, if you had to publish it yourself, it can't be that good, they're missing out. They're certain to be missing out on a classic. Dylan says, I can't imagine Steve not liking Mishima, though he probably rightly wants to avoid the type of attention talking about Mishima invites. Yeah. He's a great writer, but the dude bros have sadly claimed him. Right, exactly. I couldn't do a video about Mishima, or I would attract the people I don't want to know my channel exists. Darkspar says, Seamus Heaney, a poet of Pete Spades and Heathery Turf. Yeah. Rasmus says, one of the books that entered the public domain this year was the earliest English translation of All Quiet on the Western Front. Good potential read aloud material. No. Although I did review the new translation of All Quiet on the Western Front. But no, no, I don't think so. AKA says, yes, maybe the Dude Bros have claimed Mishima. He still might be my favorite novelist. The Sea of Fertility was an unforgettable reading experience for me. The Dude Bros have completely claimed him, unfortunately. Must read more. Book Pilled was the first Booktube channel I ever found. Watched his videos regularly until he bailed on us for Patreon. Sid says, Steve, do you have one of those big Kobos with physical buttons? I'm thinking about upgrading from my basic Kindle because I want to try an e-reader with physical buttons once. Not the big ones. I have 2 Kobos that have, they aren't new. They work just fine, but they have the physical buttons on the side, and they are wonderful, really sturdy, good devices. I also have my Kindle Oasis that has buttons on the side, but I don't have the new Kobos. Anything new. The ones I have are years old. Coffee says, any thoughts on Stars, The Most Secret Memory of Men? Just finished it and have never read a Shaggy Dog story like it before. There's not enough time in the chat. Oh my God. Scolger? Cooking beans and enjoying my first Stevestream in a long time. Cheers. I forget the name that I gave you that I could pronounce. Uh, some okie dude. I'm reading some Superman comics before the movie comes out. Any Rex? I just read For All Seasons yesterday. Yeah. Well, I did a Superman starter kit. You can't tell me that I didn't do that. I did a Superman starter kit. But there is it's standard thing, but there is a Superman story called For the Man Who Has Everything by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. That is great. It is I'm perfectly happy to give credit where credit is due. It's a great Superman story. Also, there is a thing that was, I forget who wrote it, but it was drawn by Stuart Immonen. And it's called Secret Identity. And it's not about Superman. It's about, well, you have to read it to see, but it is about Superman. But it is a wonderful meditation on what Superman is, what he means, and an alternate version, an alternate story about Superman that actually works. And talking about Alan Moore, there's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, which you must not miss. You must not miss it. Let's see here. Some Okidu says good stuff. Leo Picard says, do you think Sword and Sorcery can be written as a long novel, or does it only work in short form? It can be written as a long novel, but it's tough. It's really tough to do. Aslan says, I'm always reading a book, but I have so I have so many books clamoring for my attention when I have to choose what to read, and it's disorienting. I would say I sympathize, but of course I don't. I sympathize, but I've never had that experience. Happy to make recommendations. Tolstoy 111 says Matt Walsh called Blood Meridian a great American novel. Shocked. Yeah, he hasn't read it, but he likes what he's heard about it. Dylan says, I, for one, am shocked that Matt Walsh can read, even if it is Dude Bro that he doesn't. Can't read. Sits on his porch smoking cigars. Can't name his own children. I think he knows one, probably the first one, but he can't name all the others. It's not his job to remember their names or know anything about them. It's his wife's job. And if she doesn't remember their names and know everything about them, he can just belt her across the face. AKA says, if Jack Edwards is using Blinkist, do you think his book collection is all for show? Or do you think he's half scammer, half actually interested in books? I have no doubt that there's a part of him that is interested in books. No doubt at all. Sid says, if I can artfully dodge the question that way, I will gladly do it. Sid says, I was reading the comments on a Reddit thread the other day about booktubers, saw someone recommend your channel, and then a person just casually replied, the guy that hates women. Yeah. After almost 10 years. 10 years. Shows you that if you can survive a cancellation, but it sticks with you. Yeah, the guy who hates women. People do it just routinely. Every once in a while, I'll get a comment on a video, someone just flying in and saying, oh, is this the guy that hates women? Oh, is he still around? Bye. Just you call it infuriating. It's just these people are so incredibly stupid. They reveal themselves as being just incredibly stupid. Although I don't deny that a part of me it stings anyway. Even as dumb as it is, it stings anyway to know that there are huge numbers of especially UK booktubers that just are never going to change that opinion. They're just never going to do it, no matter what. Even if they were to watch my videos, they would somehow see a knuckle-dragging misogynist. They would somehow see that. Anyway, it bothered me a lot more like 6 or 7 years ago. It bothered me a lot more than it does now, because in the intervening time, I have met all of you. This is not a men's right cult that I'm running here. I've met all of you. I've had people over here to visit. I made real world friends. It bothers me, but it doesn't bother me anywhere near as much because it didn't close the door on anything for me. Brian says, speaking of first time videos, I know an older lesbian couple who never watched Lord of the Rings. Couldn't convince them they would be perfect to make a reaction content video. No, they'd actually be bad at it. Keep in mind, because all the reaction content is false. All of it is fake. And theirs wouldn't be. No one would want to watch it. Follow Smoke says, James Gunn put out a reading list of books he used to influence the film. Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow by Alan Moore, Kingdom Come by Mark Waid. For All Seasons were the three. Oh, there was only three, and he picked those. Oh, interesting. Well, he can't do anything with Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. That's for sure. I don't think he could do anything with that. Interesting. Kingdom Come. Okay. I didn't mention that, but of course it is a great Superman story. Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll see. It'd be the money people that determine what the movie is, not him. Sam Y says, what do you think of George R. R. Martin's early work, and which of them should I pick up and read first? Sand Kings. Find a paperback collection, the old Timescape paperback. If I could ever see that, I would grab it in a heartbeat. Find a paperback collection of his old science fiction and fantasy. Night Flyers, Sand Kings. Sand Kings is incredible. Night Flyers is amazing. Those stories are whole worlds unto themselves. Back when he was edited and had to work for a living under a preset word count, they're amazing, just amazing. I've never really got on board with Wild Cards, but Fever Dream, his vampire novel, is very good, and his original horror science fiction and straight up Night Flyers and Sand King, I think, in Sand Kings would count as horror science fiction, and yet they are really, really good. Oh my God, don't miss them. SM30 says, why are printed books so unbelievably and inexplicably expensive these days? Yeah. Incredibly expensive. I think partly it's material, but mainly it's a shrinking base. Fewer and fewer people read them, so they don't have volume sales. So in the publishing world, their thinking is fewer and fewer people are reading these things. We have to increase our prices just to break even. We know that's not true, because if you price an ebook for $2, it'll get more sales than if you were to come out with a paperback that had good word of mouth in a retail bookstore that was $6. Well, then you'd see, it's selling as many copies as you can print. I think the publishing industry is just pricing themselves into irrelevance. Sid says, more hints seem to be dropping about a David Murphy visit around Valentine's Day. The jokes just write themselves. Surely David Murphy would not lay himself open to the kind of jokes that would only arise if you accidentally booked a visit to Boston on Valentine's Day. Surely he would not do that. After all, you all go on forever and ever about how smart he is. Anyway, AKA says, my Kindle Paperwhite kept shutting off on its own while I stood it up on the tray table on a train today. That power button might be its only flaw. Oh yeah, the power button placement is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Follow Smoke says, I hear George Martin's Wild Card universe is a lot of fun. It's very cheap fun. There's no texture to it at all. It's like reading a comic book, only without the artwork. It's the superhero universe. I bought the first book yesterday to give it a spin. I hope you like it, but I don't think you're going to like it much. DZIGIN says, Steve, Futurama or The Simpsons? The Simpsons. Not that no disrespect to Futurama, but The Simpsons. Jason Wisnick, what are your thoughts on the Faulkner's Intruder in the Dust? It stinks. Wine and Calzone says, The Return. Leo Picard says, Steve, is there a full-blown dude bro writer who is actually good? Maybe his worldview ruins his books, but technically speaking, there are a few. Not just writers like Mishima who've been claimed by dude bros, but are good anyway, but are good on their own. There are a few. It's not necessarily the kiss of death. It's mainly, when I mock dude bro, I'm mainly mocking the reception crowd, not the book, unless the book egregiously deserves it. House of Leaves, for instance, or Infinite Jest. Constance Campbell says, does Starship Troopers the film with female extras all from the same gene pool? Not sure what that's supposed to mean. What are you asking? Tori Reed says, yes, all of Stephen Jay Gould's books in hardcover with plastic coverings on the dust jackets. I was stunned and absolutely grabbed everything. I even found the structure of evolutionary theory. Good for you grabbing them all. You'll revisit all of them except structure of evolutionary theory, but you'll revisit all the others. You'll have your favorites, but you'll go back and back. Joe's Book and Movie Corner, the AT without packing food. Wow. Well, that was a long time ago. Wow. Also, I agree about Starship Troopers. While I like the book, the movie is a layered masterpiece with incredible special and visual effects. Yeah, and Dylan hasn't watched it because he's a loser. Might even say a wicked piss a loser. Aslan says, do you generally like the Penguin history books? Yes. SM3 says, I found the entire John Barth collection at my local used bookstore recently, and there goes my monthly book budget. Well, with John Barth, I wouldn't have bought them all at all. Anything after letters is not worth your time. And even letters is so self-indulgent that you got to be on board or you're not going to like it at all. So you could have cut that in half and saved some of your budget. Manny says, what can buyers do with this stolen federal data? What can't they do? Are you an American? What can't they do? They, among other things, can crash the system at any time. But I'm talking about all the data. Elon Musk was allowed into the United States data mainframe with his minions right behind him, feverishly copying everything in sight. So not only does he have all of that and can sell all of that, so the net worths of every American in the country, not only all the politicians, but everybody else, the tax returns, personal information, passwords, the keyboard stroke records for every federal computer. For all I know, for every computer. It's not just that all that was copied; it's that all that can be mucked with now. It's a catastrophic decision, but there's nothing anybody can do about it. Certainly nothing you or I can do about it. Tolstoy 111 says, much depends on the red road not taken, and it made no difference at all. Now, it doesn't make any difference. I've seen the image that's in that stupid poem a million times in real life, which is a lot more than the poem's author could say. And nothing depends on it. So anyway, AKA says, have you never had an interest in translating books for publication since you read in so many languages and love so many books? Funny you should mention that. Since just the other day, somebody brought up, I forget what the book was, but somebody brought up, could we do a read aloud of a certain book in a certain translation? And I had to point out to them what I've had to point out to a few people via email over the years, which is that just because the copyright has expired on a book doesn't mean it's expired on its English language translation. It's two different copyrights, it's two different work, and you can get in real trouble if you do that. And then I started thinking, well, is there a book that I want to read aloud that maybe I could get around a copyright on the English language translation? And there's a good way to do that, isn't there? A fairly direct way to do that. I am strongly thinking about getting around that. Anyway, Echo Fall says, also on Once a Future King, the timeline kind of confused me. It states that Uther the Conqueror invaded Britain in 1066, seemingly replacing William in the timeline, but William is still mentioned. Right. And it's the same. It happens all throughout Once a Future King. It happens all throughout the Book of Merlin, and you just have to sort of make your peace with that. That White is overlaying a mytho-history of England onto the real history of England. So at times in Once a Future King, especially in the Book of Merlin, it looks almost like he's saying that Uther Pendragon is Edward the First. Maybe. But yeah, all the names get mentioned. You just the mythic history lays on the real history like thick fog on the downs, and you just have to live with that. That's all. It's just an authorial decision that you just have to live with. The payoff for living with it is enormous. Hannah's Books is here. Sam did review The Naked Similarity. Did he really? Did he review it? He must have. He couldn't have reviewed it right away. He wouldn't review an indie publishing, and he wasn't working for them then. He must have reviewed it when it was reprinted. It looks like the paperback was published by University of Chicago Press in the current edition. Okay, that must have been the one that he did. He must be blurbed. So that would mean both of us are blurbed on the University of Chicago Press paperback. Did not know that. AKA says, do you have an all-time favorite work of translation? Yeah, I do. It's Chapman's Homer. Tolstoy 111 says, I made a playlist of your DPs, that's Daily Penguin, I believe, and there are 269. Well, that's awful close to a year's worth. We should close that gap. Samwise says, recently I was recommended The Frontiersman by Alan Eckert. It was recommended as one of the best pieces of historical fiction out there. What do you think of the book? Do you agree? You'll love it. Once you get into the pattern of its rhythm, it's a very old style pattern. You will love it. I hesitate because Alan Eckert would have hesitated that it was fiction. He maintained for a long time that you can call it whatever you want, and his agent, if my agent wants me to call it fiction to help with sales, well, fine, but nothing in here didn't happen or couldn't have happened. I'm not contradicting anything in the historical record. I love it. I absolutely love it. He wasn't the only historical novelist that did that sort of thing, and I love it. I think he does it better than anybody. Uh, I love the book. I think you're going to love it. Let's just put it that way. Andy Gaia says, also speaking of series, Steve, the adaptation of Mirror and the Light came out recently. Did you ever bother trying to get screeners for it? I never got a screener for it, no. And it appears to be, what is it, on BBC or something like that? It's not any streaming service that I have. And I would love to see it, even though I disagree with a lot of it, even the bits that I've seen. Damian Lewis is terrible as Henry. Terrible. He's vamping for the camera. And crucially, as I've said many, many times before, Mark Rylance is bad as Cromwell. He's just badly miscast. The only reason that he's in it is because it's a starring vehicle. He should have had the sense to see that he was too old for the role, that he's wrong for the role. He should have had the sense to see that and just not do it. But he didn't. I have no idea what he's like in real life. I have no idea. Maybe he's, this classic actor egomaniac. It's a shame because if he's wonderful, of course, he's great in everything he does. He's even great as Cromwell, but I can't get rid of the fact that he's badly cast the whole time. And then you have the change in casting for the Duke of Norfolk, because King Theoden was Norfolk in the first season and then died. And I disagreed with his casting in the first season because despite the fact that he died, in right after that season filmed, he comes off as a hale and hearty, healthy man. That's not how Norfolk is portrayed in the books. The current Norfolk is much better. A rackety, wheezy old man who just refuses to die. But I haven't seen it. I would love to see how it's done. And I haven't seen it. I've just seen the little bits and scenes, the 2-minute scenes that are on YouTube. In which, of course, I am pleased with Mark Rylance's performance, but it's wrong. He shouldn't be Cromwell. He's just wrong for the role. He's old and thready, sick, sounds sickly. It should be a powerhouse of a man in his 50s that does that role. Anyway, AK, oh, no, the chat jumped. We were on The Mirror and the Light. Oh, God help us. Sorry about this. Sorry, I should sing when this happens so that we have something to fill the void. Oh my God. Okay, sorry. There we go. AKA says, I'll give your road deconstruction series a watch. You should. You should. It's pretty funny and unanswerable. It's complete. The thing that drove the Dude Bros crazy on Reddit is that my criticisms of the book are not answerable. All you can do in response to what I'm not just some Joe Blow coming in off the sidewalk. I'm one of the world's most experienced critics of the written word. If I make an objection to a book that I say is structural, well, it's damn well structural. It's not my opinion. Confronted with just one example after another of that all throughout the book, the Dude Bros had nothing to do except to say it doesn't matter. So they ended up saying, well, character doesn't matter. Well, plot doesn't matter. Well, consistency doesn't matter. Okay, well, if you're going to say that, rather than say your book is bad, you can still like it. But rather than say your book is bad, you're going to say it's not a book or that no book is a book. That's pretty bad. But anyway, you had more to say, right? I jumped in. My sisters repeatedly told me how stupid that book is, and after being forced to read it at school by a teacher who idolizes Cormac. Watch my videos. Have her watch my videos. She'll probably be cheering. Brett says, Once Richard King read along. AK says, Once Richard King better than The Lord of the Rings. It is, but good luck saying that to any fan of Lord of the Rings. A read along is a good idea. That's not a bad idea at all. Colin says, would you ever do an essential naval maritime fiction? I know that I have done that. I know that I have. I'm certain that I have. And Mark Richardson and I did. So if it isn't on my channel, it'll be on his channel. We did a video where the two of us picked out dueling top 10 lists of naval stuff, fiction and nonfiction. And we didn't tell each other ahead of time what the books were. So we're at his table up in Vermont, surprising each other. Those two videos are worth watching, fiction and nonfiction. Manny says, this Orlando Furioso experience I've been having for the last few weeks has made me really want to reread The Once and Future King. So a read along would be wonderful. That's in the hopper now. DZIGIN says, Brotherhood of the Wolf is where Doctor and his friend come to French province of Govedon to stop beast that terrorizes it, and that uncovers a much larger conspiracy. That's not ringing a bell. So it must not be the paramilitary thing that I was thinking of. Dylan says, why do so many authors struggle to create living characters, especially those of the opposite sex? Is it simply arrogance or something else? Well, there's a really good explanation for your question about the 30-minute mark in Starship Troopers. It's because most authors are bad. That's why. Philip says, why isn't there a penguin of Lily's Euphy? God help us. I walked right into that one, didn't I? There isn't because there shouldn't be. That's why. It would only serve pedants. Jerome Jacobson says, Don Quixote was an odd book. I read the first half and enjoyed it, but the second half was bad. Just my opinion. Also my opinion. Also the opinion of the whole literary world, except for the one contrarian who showed up a couple of Stevestreams ago and said the second half is obviously better than the first half. I don't know what you're talking about. You must not be a good reader. I try to be very nice and gentle with such people. What would be the point of being otherwise? It would be really great if Penguin did a Penguin Classic Deluxe edition of Don Quixote in the Grossman translation. That would be really great. Jeffrey says, I watched your video on 7 Days in May from a few years ago and recently read the novel. It was fantastic. Yes, but you read the book. I don't know if you saw the movie or know the movie. Another perfect example of how the movie is better than the book. Because at the end, right, there's a confrontation at the end between the president and the general. And in the book, it's a very muted thing. And in the movie, the writer of the movie gives Frederick March a great speech. It's a great confrontation. It's the ultimate important confrontation in the book. And in the book, it's so-so. And in the movie, it's terrific. Absolutely terrific. So definitely watch the movie. It might be free on YouTube. Let's see here. Jesse Lynch says, OMG, Steve, so glad to catch you live. Going to listen now, no matter how short the rest of the stream will be. AKA says, Steve, we all know you love dogs, but which animal would be your second favorite? And why is it cats? It would not be cats. No, it would be bats or pigs. It's a lot easier to be friends with a pig because they're not so delicate. William Doyle says, even a broken dude bro is right twice a day. And speaking of broken dude bros, here is a view from the bar. Alex Serrano, your ears must be burning. We've been talking about you. Cuba Fruit is out today, and there was another pop in pre-orders after you were mentioned the other night. Thanks for your endorsement. Everybody in the chat, View from the Bar is Alex Serrano, the author of the book Cuba Fruit, which is now available on Amazon. And which is what we have been talking about. Jared Henderson mentioned that it was really, really good and read like someone who actually reads books. We've been talking about the shame of the industry, of the shame of the indie industry, that this book has to scrounge in the indie world for readers instead of getting put on tables at Barnes & Noble. All of that is true, and Alex is the author. Quite apart from any interviews that I have with him, feel free to go and buy his book. It's not a favor to him. It's not charity to him. You're going to love it. Anyway, Darkspar says, may Uncle Monty buy you cake at the tea house? Wine and Calzones is back. I told myself that your Booktube break coincided with an extended visit to Candor for Steve and David Murphy. Which view was Flame Bird? Well, I don't know. Which of us says, is the juice worth the squeeze? I think that would be Flame Bird. Oh, a Candor reference. Oh my God. But of the two, it's Nightwing that had to be redeemed because you couldn't do a superhero called Flame Bird. You couldn't do it. William Doyle says, is Alan Moore as smart as he thinks he is? No one in the history of the world is as smart as he thinks he is. Wine and Calzone says, I know people are not going to get that reference, though. I did, though, and it warmed the cockles of my transplanted rhesus monkey heart. But Flamebird. I mean, honestly, we're talking about, with David Murphy and myself, we're talking about the ultimate juxtaposition of the gayest straight man in the world and the straightest gay man in the world. So I don't think there's any doubt in the matter. Anyway, AKA says, Steve, how come you never ended up traveling to Australia or Antarctica? Okay, little mistake there. I did go to Antarctica. I've been inland in Antarctica, much farther inland than most people ever go. Australia, though, I don't know. It was just complacence. I remember sailing with the captain of the vessel that I was hiring at the time. We saw there was a smudge of brown, that, the crown of clouds that land gets when you're at sea, so you know that land is way, way over there. There was a distant smudge of brown on the horizon, and my captain said, "That's Australia. Do you want to go?" I was paying for everything. He would have done anything, and I said, "I'll get to it." We didn't do it. I've never set foot on Australia. I've never met or face smooched with a dingo. There's a whole type of dog on this planet that I've never met. But anyway, Sid says, I love For the Man Who Has Everything much more than Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, maybe because it works better for a Superman newbie like me. Yeah. For the Man Who Has Everything is a self-contained thing. You will get caught up in the drama of it whether you know anything at all. Because even if you're a Superman newbie, you know one thing about him at least, which is that he's the sole survivor of the planet Krypton. So the drama of a Krypton that isn't dead will work on you anyway. Whereas for the Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow is really a love letter to people who've been reading Superman from the beginning. Samwise says, Steve, thoughts on Aztec by Gary Jennings? Any book recommendations for similar novels? I like Aztec. I hate the sequels, but Aztec, it gets a little labored. In fact, advertises how labored it is right at the beginning. And it just, I realize that critics could say that Journeyer is also labored, but I don't think so. Oh my, Journeyer is so much better than anything that Gary Jennings wrote. But in terms of recommendations for similar novels, in terms of the Aztec Empire, something like that, no. If you haven't read Journeyer by Gary Jennings, you certainly should. Perfect Hand Productions. I read The Three-Body Problem after many recommendations. The intrigue was engaging, but I found the characters increasingly unbelievable. And the finale rushed. What are your thoughts on the novel? You've said them perfectly. I've always thought it was a little overrated. AK says, light or dark mode for your Kindle, or do you switch during the day? I don't understand people who read in dark mode. I do not understand that. Maybe it's just that they don't have bad memories associated. I remember when computer screens looked like that. And there wasn't an alternate mode. It was just these letters floating in a sea of darkness. It's light mode only. Tolstoy 111. Matt Walsh appeared in a video extolling the death of Ivan Ilyich, tells his audience to read books all the time, and laments how right-wing men avoid fiction and often openly scorn it. He's lying. Big Shep says, oh, wow, a Manosphere Stevestream. Does everyone have their obligatory copies of Meditations, or whatever the latest David Goggins book is? Game of Authors says, I heard you say you intended to give Charles Dickens a complete reread in 2025. How's that going so far? Have you read anything yet that you appreciated or enjoyed more this time around? I am still in the wussy stage of that reading by reading about Dickens. I'm still in the wuss stage. I'll get to the novels. I just haven't started yet. Sid says, I was enjoying the stories in the collection until I got to Sand Kings itself, and I've been trying to sell it to readers ever since. Incredible story. One of the only works that I would even remotely consider horror that actually worked on me. Most horror doesn't. Wilson Esquire's back. Had to go off and make a watercress sandwich, did you? I watch your channel exclusively for the copious men's right content. Interested in seeing how the other half lives, are you? Danger kid doesn't want anything to do with Wilson. Steve, why do you think it is that Tim Powers doesn't get much love on Booktube these days? I've read almost everything he's written and loved it all without exception. He is great. He does get some love in the science fiction fantasy Booktube community, a little, but not much. And who would know? Because they're so intensely balkanized. Not only are they not watched by other readers, but they don't want to be watched by other readers. kind of weird. Follow Smoke says Harold Bloom also caught up in the mischaracterization from the public because he wanted what was on the page to be the only thing that mattered, not the gender/ethnicity of the author, right? Schools of resentment. He was right about that. God help us. He's lucky he died before he saw how bad it could get. And I might point out, for those of you living in America watching the news, I keep in mind you shouldn't, but I might point out, years ago, I said the only thing that, if people agree to this kind of ideological fascism, the kind of ideological capture that I bemoan all the time, I said corporations, entertainment industries, comic books, are all just willingly agreeing to this crap, this identity politics, school of resentment crap. And as long as they are willingly doing it, the only thing that could possibly stop it, the only thing that could possibly break its power, would be something worse than it, something that no reasonable person wants to see, and that would be fascism. And I was right. I wish I weren't, but I was. But anyway, Colombian Thunder. Hi, Steve. Just started FDR series, The Mantle of Command. Any other nonfiction I should check out around that time period? Around the time period when he wrote his books, or around the time period of FDR? There's a ton of nonfiction about FDR that's worth checking out, but that series is terrific. You picked a good one to do. Christina says, hi all. I'm a little late to the stream, but it's great to be here. Griffin says, I love the second half of Don Quixote. I feel like it really introduces the thematic elements of the book. You little troublemaker. AKA says, what's the wickedest Boston film? Well, what's the Dennis Lehane adaptation starring Casey Affleck? I had a friend say that the first 20 minutes of that movie ought to be a nature documentary. That's so accurate, and I agree. But I'm not remembering the name of it now. Because all of his books, and therefore all of their movies, are so poorly titled. Dylan says, I can stand being a loser, but a wicked piss-a-loser? I think I need to get around to Starship Troopers. Yeah, you think you do? Think you need to watch Starship Troopers? Never watched Starship Troopers. I've never watched Starship Troopers. But, you know, you're Johnson just hanging there. But it might as well be pointless because you haven't watched Starship Troopers. Go do your precious gym when you're doing your PRs every day after your black market North Korean pre-workout. Try walking into your gym and shouting out loud, I've never seen Starship Troopers. You'd be murdered. Why do you people watch these streams? So anyway, since Steve, is there anything else worth reading by the better Murakami? All of his stuff. All of it. Even his debut. I read Coin Locker Babies last year per your recommendation, and it was good kind of crazy, yeah. But even Transparent Kind of Blue, all of his stuff is worth reading. Even his debut, which is very much a debut book. It very much is. Follow Smoke says, I saw Barth's Letters at the charity shop the other day and picked it up to read the synopsis and audibly said, ew, for putting it back. Self-indulgent is the perfect descriptor. Okay, that's hilarious. I am fond of some aspects of it, but it doesn't hold together. It falls apart right away. And you can tell the one thing about a book that you shouldn't be able to tell, which is that I'm not the only one who's fond of the book. The author is. And that's when you have been the pasha of your Johns Hopkins writing workshop for way too long. But it makes a good line in the sand. Anything after that is just ew. There's nothing worthwhile in it. Anti-Gaia says Putin is like rubles for the CIA agent placement map. Sid says Steve's translation of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea incoming. It's not 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's a little older than that. Sam Wise says, is Our Town by Thornton Wilder brilliant or boring? And why? It's brilliant. Don't be fooled by how common it is. Somewhere every day, Our Town by Thornton Wilder is staged somewhere. Don't be fooled by that. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, especially as guests of mine have discovered the third act. The third act is like nothing that anyone has ever written. drama or prose or nonfiction. It's brilliant. Manny says, "Are you still planning to do a read aloud of The Way We Live Now?" I should do that, shouldn't I? I always think about other trollops, but there's no reason not to go back to The Way We Live Now again. I mean, I did an intense read along, but I don't think I've ever actually read the thing out loud, and that would be so much fun. Oh no, The Way We Live Now, and the chat jumped. Here, let's go back to The Way We Live Now. Sorry, I always do this, and then I should have a musical number in store for when I'm working my way back. Here I am, the goddess of desire, setting it on fire. I have this power. Morning, noon, and night, it's twink and dancing, some quick romancing, and then a shower. Oh, there we go. Here we are. Okay. AKA says, "I'm betting Steve's going to translate his beloved Blood Meridian into Arabic." Griffin says, "Are you going to translate Praise of Folly?" No. I'm thinking something older. AKA says, "My sister keeps telling me to read Osamu Dazai. Should I listen to her?" No. You shouldn't listen to her anyway, much less on that. And would my love of Mishima make me more likely to enjoy Desai? No, less so. Oh my God, less so. J. Scott Phillips, is it just me, or has there been a noticeable lack of sirens outside your windows since your hibernation? The neighborhood. I noticed this when I was in hibernation, when I wasn't making videos. The neighborhood is unbelievably empty and quiet. I don't know what's happened. It's not just the sirens, it's the people. It's when the Bean and I go out for our last walk of the night, we could walk in the middle of the street the whole time if we wanted to. There's nothing to sniff there, but we could if we wanted to. It's unbelievable. I don't know what's happened. Sid says, "Watch, there'll be a bunch of sirens now." Sid says, "Wow, I didn't know that they cast Rylance as Cromwell. That seems insane. I love him in Globe's 12th Night, though. That was the adaptation that unlocked Shakespeare for me. He's been great and is one of the greatest Shakespeare stage actors of his day, but he is badly miscast as a muscular bruiser. Badly. And because he's Mark Rylance, and because he's playing Cromwell as this kind of thready, ethereal, slightly sick-beddy guy, you don't get the visceral sense of why so many people would hate him and want to tear him down. Maybe that was conscious, because you certainly don't get that sense in Hilary Mantel's books. We could come up with a list of British actors who would have been better for Cromwell, and then Rylance could play the Duke of Norfolk. But anyway, Manny says, "I found a bunch of books in my grandmother's attic lately, and a few books was by Selma Lagerlof. Do you like any of her work?" I don't know that I know that. View from the Bar is back. "I just discovered that the BBC licensed for Beans much of their programming to PBS in the 70s. Is that how you became such a learned canine about English TV? Do you binge those old shows on DVD?" There seems to be an insult lurking around in that question somehow. Are you implying that my knowledge is not divinely given? I am all-knowing about all things. But anyway, Mahatma Gandhi says, "Started your Western canon." Those are 10-year-old videos. Still get people to watch them. It makes you think that there's a need for something that isn't the normal pretentious booktuber. Andrew says, "I don't agree with the misogynist charges against you, but I can't deny your relationship with Deb has had its ups and downs." God help us. If the people that constantly bring up is that the guy that hates women? If they knew about my relationship with Deb, I'd never live it down. They'd ban me from the internet. She had it coming. No matter what you heard it was, she had it coming. Sid says, "Remember that guy who told you in a stream once that you'll have an easier time with McCarthy if you have a deep understanding of the Bible?" I know. Yes. Yeah, I really should get around to the Bible one of these days. I really should. Dylan says, "That video where you and Mark compare your top tens is such a joy." Were there two of them? I thought there were two videos, one fiction and one nonfiction. But either way, there you have, I am firmly convinced, Booktube's two oldest salts. I am pretty sure that no one else on Booktube has logged as many sea hours as Mark and I, in drastically different capacities and often on very different seas. But Uh, we've also done the work on land by reading the books. So yeah, go and watch those videos. I should watch those videos. I don't think I've ever watched them. J. Scott Phillips says, any plans for Criminology's Wasted Weekend? No. I think of tying it into one of the homes is where the hearts is with a pastiche I found by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I don't know that he'd like you calling those things garbage. Adam Miller says, what are your thoughts on Watership Down? It's dumb. I'm about three quarters of the way through. Oh no, I hope you don't like it. I just called it dumb. And it's been an absolutely delightful game. Oh no. Do you have any recommendations for anything in a similar vein? I would recommend the grown-up versions. Read Brave New World. Read uh, Ridley Walker or 1984. Anyway, Jesse Lynch says, have you ever tried to read The Phantom of the Opera? I struggled with that one. It was awful close to a have you read question. Of course, I have read Phantom of the Opera. Of course, I have. It's not good. It's no wonder you struggled with it. It's not good. It's really bad, but nevertheless. Rodenty says, I'm not familiar with your opinions on Shakespeare. You must be very new. I'd like to know what your favorite play is, whether it's a tragedy, history, or comedy. I know what kinds of plays he wrote. Thanks. Or one of each. Also, hi, Steve. Have a good night. My favorite Shakespeare play is Julius Caesar. I don't particularly like the comedies. I love the histories. I love the tragedies. I've seen them all many times on stage, and I've taught most of them. AK is responding to someone else. Rodensy says Leonardo was probably smarter than he thought he was. Echo Fall says, speaking of Antarctica, what's the best book on Ernest Shackleton? Is it just his own book, South? Well, his own book is a period piece. So, Shackleton, there have been later histories of him. Endurance, isn't that about Shackleton? There have been later histories that are more global. They give you a lot more context than he does in his own book. His own book is worth reading, but it's a period piece. AKA says, oh, wow, you've been to Antarctica. That's amazing. I'd love to see the expansive ice whilst it's still expansive, and the orca and the penguins. And my boys and I, we went deep inland. Luckily, we had a team of dogs that were built for that. Beagles are not built for that. Humans are not built for that. Boy, oh boy, though. Being out there, well past the little human settlements that were there when I was there, probably a lot more humans there now. I really got the sense of being right there on the edge of the world, the hard horn of the world, as Tolkien puts it. I really feel like you're just one step away from another world. Rodensy says, do you play any instruments? No. Wine and Calzone says the essential maritime videos were filmed when Steve and Frida got stuck at the old farmhouse in Vermont, snowed in. Oh, that's right. We got snowed in, not in Vermont. Boston got snowed in, and we couldn't go back. The roads were impassable, so we had to stay. There was much groaning at the old house in Vermont when that happened, but what can you do? AKA says, speaking of orca, have you had any interesting interaction with them in the wild? I'm such a big fan of them, but have never seen any. I have, yeah. I wrote about it. I actually opened a piece this way. It was for the National in Abu Dhabi. I wrote a review of Death at SeaWorld. And I took a risk. I assumed my editor would tell me to take it out, but I did a personal little vignette at the beginning of that review. That was 15 years ago, about encountering orcas in the wild and how different they are to orcas doing circus tricks for an audience and living in a cement pen otherwise. And that, of course, that's going to drive them insane. Of course it is. Even if snatching them away from their close-knit community doesn't drive them insane, that's going to drive them insane. I haven't encountered them in the wild, and I know what we're supposed to say over and over again here, that orcas never attack humans. Okay, all right, fine. They're still terrifying. It is absolutely. When I was canoeing, I had a canoe full of beagles, and I the first time it happened, I had a canoe full of beagles when a living predator the size of a city bus surfaced next to us. My boys had supernatural senses. They had no idea this animal was there until all of a sudden a fin broke the surface no more than 6 feet away from my starboard side. a fin broke the surface and then just kept going. And the fin was like 8 feet tall, 6 feet tall. Um, but anyway, I Samwise says, Steve, I've been trying to read Gene Wolfe lately, and I've read the Book of the New Sun, Pirate Freedom, Free Live Free, and Castle View. What book of his would I read next? What's an underrated book of his? His, well, you can read whatever you want. He's all good. But he wrote a later what Booktube calls a duology of Wizard and Knight that is good. It's very good. Really, you can't go wrong. Definitely read short stories. Definitely read short stories. There are a couple of good short stories that used to be done by Timescape. I wish I had them still. Colombian Thunder says, I wouldn't trust anything that comes out of Matt Walsh's mouth. Adam Miller says, do you recommend Will and Ariel Durant's Story of Civilization? Yes, I do, yes. I hope so, considering I spent a few bucks on a full set in decent condition recently. I have them all as ebooks, so I never get the full set. The full set turns up about 4 times a year at the Brattle, and I never get it because it's a whole shelf of books. I always wonder how I'm going to use them, how much I'm going to use them. Probably the next time a good set shows up, I should just get them. Uh, uh, Colombian Thunder says, around the time period of FDR. What is around the time period of FDR? What's the context of that? Oh my God. And then FDR made the chat jump. Let's go back to where that was. Where was FDR? There we go. Nick Pickle, Gone Baby Gone. Yes, that's it. That's the Dennis Lehane thing. Scott Jones says, good evening, sir. I'm getting set to read several novels of Thackeray, having never read him before. I'm starting by reading Trollop's book on him, and his writings is a good portrayal of him. It's a good portrayal of him. It's a good book. I don't know that you want to read several Thackeray. Why would you want to do that if you've never read him before? What if you don't like him? Why wouldn't you read Vanity Fair and see if you like him? I don't know. It's up to you. Wilson Esquire is back. Took a nap, did you? Watercress sandwich. It was a gentleman's Savoy delight, if you care to know. There's a big surprise. Scott Jones says, continued on Thackeray. Are there better introductions to him that I should check out? You don't need an introduction. I guess if you want one, you could read Wikipedia, but you don't need one. Vanity Fair will work on you, regardless of whether or not you know anything about him. I guess maybe I'm not sure what you mean by introduction. Jesse Lynch says, Starship Troopers, all I remember is the big bugs. Did I miss the point of the movie? Maybe my memory is getting really bad. No, the big bugs are, of course, the point of the movie, but the debate of the movie is it authoritarian fascism? Is it a hymn of praise to authoritarian fascism? Or is it a satire of hymns of praise to authoritarian fascism? An unanswerable question that you're never going to get dragged into conversations with. You'll be welcome in Dude Bro circles. Constance says, any Black History Month recommendations? Something relatively new? I never know what to say to this. I never know how to answer questions like this. So I leave things like Black History Month entirely alone, or Pride. I leave them entirely alone because they don't seem genuine to me. You are genuine. So you're genuinely asking for a recommendation. The events don't seem genuine to me. They seem nowadays like traps. There was just a few years ago a biography of Alan Locke, the grandfather, the presiding genius of the Harlem Renaissance. It's terrific. It's absolutely terrific. You could certainly do worse than to read that. A few years before that, there was a big new biography by a guy named David Blight of Frederick Douglass. Hugely good book, gigantically wonderful. And a bunch of other. I mean, just last year, there was a book called The Barn, in which a blood relative of one of the men who lynched Emmett Till goes to the Deep South, studies these people, learns the language, the rhythm of the language, and revisits the events. And it was terrific. The Barn was terrific. Rodensey says, what do you think of Samuel Beckett's plays? I don't like them. Tara Billy says, hi, Steve. Is the Three Guineas by Virginia Woolf worth it? Worth what? It's wonderful. But does Tara Billy know Danger Kid? Sounds like they're mortal enemies. Colombian Thunder says, I've also started Werner Herzog's recent memoir. Yeah, hilarious book. It's astonishing, or maybe not, how much he goes up his own navel, but his account of Klaus Kinski are almost worth it for how insane that man was. Stress here on almost. If you look at it as a comedy, then it's one of the funniest books I've read in years. But he didn't think of it as that. So David Bergen says, "What is the best way to get book recs from you? Is there a best forum for that and a best method to ask?" What an interesting question. Well, I specified book recommendations. I'm assuming you mean I have a subject in mind. I wonder what you could recommend. The best way to do that is an email, but that's just the best method. The best way to do it is not just to do that. I can't stand fact boy stuff. I can't stand it when somebody emails me, obviously not caring whether my skin is on fire. Just I paid my quarter. I want my chocolate covered peanuts, and they're not coming out of the machine fast enough. That's all I want. Is just that. I can't stand fact boy stuff like that. And I know that I open the door to being disappointed because I put my email on every video. So I open the door to people just not knowing, maybe not knowing me well enough. I want a connection. I don't just want to spit out recommendations. I will if you need it, but email is the best way to do it. Rodensy says, "Did you ever see Kevin Kline's Hamlet?" I did. AK says, "Steve, do you like the British House of Cards show? I watched it a couple of years ago and loved it." I did enjoy it. Poetic Arson, that's new, says, "I attended a rather lackluster production of Our Town at the local college." Yeah, that's the worry that I have, is that people will go to a lackluster local performance and not realize how brilliant the thing they're seeing is. I'd like to read the script. I'd also love to see it done justice on the stage. Go to YouTube. Go to YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Our Town and then Paul Newman, or Our Town and, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. The famous Mark Twain one-man show that he did forever and ever. I'm blanking on his name. He's L.B. Duncan in The West Wing. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. Well, anyway, he before Paul Newman did a huge run of Our Town on Broadway, he did a huge run of Our Town on Broadway. I'm sure that both of them, at least in part, on YouTube. Then you would see it done justice, definitely. That is going to bother me that I can't remember his name. Dylan says, "Your Western Canon starter kit is great. I routinely go back to it and starting a book you covered in it. Neither pretentious nor Philistine. Nothing like it on YouTube about the canon." Well, I would blush. I would also say, "What do you know?" If you haven't seen Starship Troopers, I would blush, but I've heard that from way too many people over the years. That plenty of booktubers talk about canonical works, but no one talks about them the way you do. I keep remembering the comments that I got when the Daily Penguin and the Western Canon videos were coming out, of people saying, "I really think I'm seeing teacher Steve here, and if that's true, how I envy." It's very, very touching. Neither pretentious nor Philistine. I'll take that, even from a Philistine. Columbian Thunder says, "Steve, I think you need to understand that you'll have a much easier time with Cormac McCarthy if you've read Herodotus." I don't know if you ever heard of it. I know some of you are remembering that guy who blundered in here and said, "You'll get a lot more out of McCarthy if you know the Bible." I'm an acquired taste, so people that do that don't know that they're making a fool of themselves. That's all. Because I think they're probably gauging their estimations to other booktubers, which is a bad idea to do when it comes to me. I try to play nice on Booktube, but well, anyway. Sid says, "Yes, there were 2 of those videos. People should go back and watch all of your Vermont cameos. They have the same charm as your CPL videos." Poetic Arson says, "I've had Wild as the Bridge of St. Louis Ray sitting on the shelf for quite some time. Do you enjoy that one?" Yeah, it is good. Anti-Guy says, "Steve, what do you make of this whole YouTube beef between Ethan Klein and Hassan Piker? I honestly can't stand either one of them. I can't either. So it's been pure joy to watch because they're both down. They're both fraud grifters." Tara Billy says, "I ordered the Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius and got Consolations of Philosophy by Alan Baton. Yeah, I don't know if it's good. It's terrible. That's awful that you got the wrong book. Order the Consolation of Philosophy in the Harvard University Press translation. If there's a paperback, it might have a blurb on it." Damien says, "When are you and handsome David Murphy going to book shopping again? Handsome David Murphy. Oh, y'all can't get enough of handsome David Murphy. Oh, with his tight pants and his low socks and his form-fitting shirts. Yeah. Eyes on the prize. Okay? Jeez Louise. What makes you think I would have him back at Hyde Cottage? I ask you. Follow Smoke says, yeah, Endurance is great. Read it. Okay, great. Endurance is the book I was thinking of. Good. Tolstoy 111 says, you and I share an affection for the classic series of Doctor Who. I've been watching Blake 7 and it eludes me. Do you like it? Maybe it's too British for me. I don't like it. I think it's drastically overrated. J. Scott Phillips says, I've heard a countdown. I haven't heard a countdown yet, but two things before we reach past 10 past the hour. Where's the Bean and Blob Watch? The Bean is right next to me. She just doesn't want look at the face of all of you. And then a Blob Watch. Well, if Scotty wants a Blob Watch, then he shall have one. It's going to be an on and off week here in New England. We saw last Blob Watch. There's that river of stuff extending from Portland all the way across the Great Lakes and then coming to New England. It's not touching the southern part of the United States that has been dunked in snow and cold. And that river is going to periodically dump weather here on Boston. Like in this Stevestream, an hour ago, it was raining here, just pattering on the windows. So let's see what that river is doing now with this miracle technology. There we have that. So you see, it's being fed like that. It's being fed there. It's coming up over the top and then to New England. So this thing right here, that batch right there will be in New England soon. I'm assuming you're just asking about New England. Is there any other place in the world to ask about? Then you've got this thing in the Badlands. That will be coming east. And by the time that is east, this will have formed and will be riding right up that trough, right along the same way towards the top of the country and towards me. Poetic Arson says, I was in a production of Wilder's one act, The Long Christmas Dinner. Such an intriguing premise and composition. Okay, I think that exhausts my Wilder ponderings. The earlier Wilder comment eats at me because I know that people think that. They go to a local production of Our Town and they think, oh, this is so common that it can't be any good. And they're seeing it poorly acted, and that's not helping any. And the third act of Our Town is shattering. It's not. Anyway. I Sam Y says, "What do you think of R. Scott Backer?" Yeah, you should chuckle. I think you know exactly what I think of him. Dylan says, "If you've seen them all and taught them all, have you ever been in or crewed any of Shakespeare plays? And does your love of the theater not extend to those aspects?" It's possible that I have been in a couple of Shakespeare plays. Long time ago. Jesse says, I do apologize. I broke the have you read, I will never happen again. Can't say I won't accidentally break other rules. You only came close to breaking it. You didn't really. Sid says, I reread Titus Andronicus yesterday and I still don't understand it. Do I have permission to say that it's a bad play? You do. You do. Maybe this one was actually written by the Earl of Oxford. Rodency says, like the Master and Commander film, I think it's masterful. It's incredible. Incredible. AKA says, oh yeah, orcas definitely terrify me as much as they interest me. If I had an interaction like yours, I might have passed out on the spot and have ended up being the first human killed by a wild orca. I think a lot of humans have been killed by wild orcas. I remember there was a science fiction novel from like 60 years ago, 50 years ago called King of the Sea about a man who actually goes native. He's dunked in the ocean and he's adopted by a pod of dolphins and actually manages to live with them. And at one point in that book, I mean, there's a lot of other things going on in that book, but at one point in that book, he's swimming in the ocean with his dolphin friends when they all disappear, and he encounters a wild killer whale and blanks with terror. He's a big, tough, manly man action hero, and he blanks out with terror at this thing. And the narrative says that in that moment, he realizes it's not that orcas never attack humans, is that they leave no trace. So you'd never know. You'd just be gone. But imagining how terrifying orcas is one thing. But there on YouTube, there is a video that was taken by a submerged camera at the aft of a boat right near the propeller. So it's a motorized boat. It's going really fast, and the film shows you an orca closing from astern, and the thing is not straining itself, and it is easily matching. It comes out of nowhere, and suddenly it's there. This thing that's as big as a truck is suddenly there, effortlessly keeping pace with you. Uh, but anyway, AKA, we actually, Scotty was right. We do need to call a lid on this sooner or later. We can't just talk forever. AKA says, most of my Mishima books don't have any introduction or notes. Are there any good books about Mishima and his works I could read instead? Why? Wikipedia will be fine for that. That's good. I didn't know there were any editions of Mishima that didn't have all sorts of blathering. Christina says, I'm sorry if this is old news. I've been away from Booktube. Did you finish your book organization last year? I remember that it was a big project you were tackling. I did. I didn't finish it. I was tackling it, and then all of it was thrown into a tizzy when the aforementioned David Murphy, handsome David Murphy, came to visit, and we just overdosed on books. We each got like 200 books, and that ruined it. That ruined everything. I haven't gone back. It's still in shambles. Uh, a Game of Authors and J. Scott Phillips are both saying Hal Holbrook. Yes, Hal Holbrook, of course, is the author. The actor, he was the stage manager in a hugely successful Broadway run of Our Town. And then decades later, Paul Newman was the stage manager of another hugely successful Broadway run. And I wouldn't be surprised if the whole of those aren't on YouTube. It's not the same thing as you sitting in a drafty community theater, but it's still worth it to do. Uh, Columbian Thunder says, sorry, I keep forgetting to add context. I meant, what are some good nonfiction recommendations around FDR's time period as president? Well, there are a dozen books about him that are worth reading. There are a dozen World War II books that are worth reading. There's a lot, way too many to just reel off in a chat. Jesse Lynch says, Hal Holbrook, yes. Rodency says, do you like Vincent Price? Oh, he's acting, you mean? Yes, I do. His film, the Poe adaptations, his persona, I love him. So do I. So do I. Game of Authors, my favorite Our Town is a 1989 production with Penelope Ann Miller as Emily Webb. I cannot watch Act 3 without sobbing every single time. I can't watch Act 3 without sobbing every single time either. And thereby you see the huge gap between people who are over familiar with this thing and have seen it underperformed and people who have watched it done well. Act 3 is shattering, absolutely shattering. And it comes out of nowhere. Nowhere at all. The first 2/3 of the play is as normal as every day gets. And then so, anyway, if I were to have a oh so handsome house guest here, probably I would put him through the third act of Our Town again. Once the wine is flowing. Danger Kid. Albie Duncan is such a tremendous character, but I also unapologetically adore every single episode of The West Wing. Isn't it is a sure sign uh, of how much I love The West Wing. That when I was trying to remember Hal Holbrook, I remembered Albie Duncan, who's in like 2 episodes of The West Wing for like a grand total of 20 minutes each. Again, if you're oh so precious, oh so handsome David Murphy were here, he would do the same thing. He knows we know every single minute, every single chapter and verse of The West Wing, so he would have done the same thing. He was Albie Duncan. I don't know if you remember the actor's name. He was put through the third act of Our Town when he was here, but I'm not sure how conscious he was. Hannah's Books is back. Blight's Frederick Douglass is wonderful. AK says, I'd love to see a lot more videos on canonical classics. I'm pretty sure I discovered your channel years ago through your Montaigne Penguin video. Oh my. All right, well, this live is largely convincing me. Arg says, good morning, Sir Steve. Oh my, you're on the other side of the world. Are you? Oh no, good morning. Jump the chat. Tolstoy 111 says, I saw the David Cromer production of Our Town. At the end, you could smell the food in the fully furnished kitchen when Emily has her moment. It was a riveting theatrical moment. Yeah. Yeah, you can hear the clatter of the pans that you don't see. You can smell the food that you don't see. You can hear the creak of the floorboards and the groaning of the door hinges that you don't see. Uh, Anyway, Deep in the Read says, "Hi, Steve. I read Suni's biography of the young Stalin based on your review and loved it. It was one of my fave reads last year, despite being much more challenging than I expected. Thanks." Well, that's nice to hear. Dylan is back. Did you take the time while you were away to watch Starship Troopers? Uh, Alan de Botton is especially bad, even by the standards of philosophy. He's clearly not even read the books he's pondering on to begin with. He's an entrepreneurial grifter. Uh, Arg says, "Good morning, Steve, Sir Steve. Were you too busy with your career, jockey? Why were you not posting videos? Give my love to the bean." Yes, I am not the Steve who was a Victorian flatbed jockey. DZGIN said, "Do you like Old Man War by John the Scalzi series?" I don't. I think I might be the only one who doesn't. They've never struck me as anything more than average. Wilson is back. You'd be a natural Polonius. Oh, really? Yeah, that's great. That your insult would have a lot more weight to it if you weren't a perfect Ophelia. Okay? So why don't you get thee to a nunnery? Wynick also says, "Got anything booktubish planned for Tolkien Day this year?" Nope. Any favorites among the Christopher Tolkien edited later books? Not favorites, no. Uh, AKA says, "I saw a video recently of an orc annihilating a full-grown white shark. Did you see that video? It almost doesn't look real. It's what drones can show us that video never could. It almost doesn't look real. And I hope that it firmly puts to bed the idea of who would win between a great white shark and an orca. Of course, mammals always win. Uh, that and the play Torture of Seals makes for one terrifying animal." Jesse says, "Vincent Price, The Tingler, a must watch. Great B movie." Oh, the movie. Rodensy is responding to Jesse. Jesse says, "West Wing Shibboleth episode, one of my favorites. I think I spelled that right." Well, if you spelled it wrong, we still won't send you back to China. Don't worry. Rodensy says, "The Fly included, Witchfinder General." Yeah, you're just going to list Vincent Price movies. Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's great. AK says, "What's one of your favorite adaptations of canonical classic?" Oh God, how much time do you have? Good Lord, that's too open-ended a question. Tolstoy 111 says, "In the Cromer, he actually has the audience actually see and smell the kitchen during her last speech. Maybe that would have upset purists. It would have upset me. The writing's enough." Dylan says, "Back from lifting lives live still going strong. I'm amazed." Well, we have to wrap up the lives though. We do. Rhodes says, "Did you see Gary Oldman and Tim Roth and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead? And did you enjoy it?" Fackin' amazing. I did see it and I liked it. I wouldn't call it amazing. Maybe I need to watch it again. Karen P says, "I just watched your Penguin video, Montaigne, during your time out and now want to watch all your old Penguins." AKA says, "Do you have a favorite serial killer film?" Oh God. Can't I just say Silence of the Lambs and get off without dealing with real life serial killers? The real life serial killers have been way too constant companions for me. Although I do have a lot to say about the Netflix Dahmer show. I don't have a venue to say it in either. Um, Poetic Arson says, "However lackluster the production of Our Town was, Wilder's insistence on minimal stagecraft was apparent and appreciated. Big fan of abstraction. Abstraction puts those characters front and center." Arg says, "Sir, why don't you make videos about fun places you lived in and books from there would be fun?" Yeah, thanks. When this becomes a democracy. Francisco says, "Hi, Steve. Do you like The Office? What's your favorite sitcom?" I like, excuse me, I like The Office. I didn't really love it, but I liked it. Favorite sitcom? Ugh. That's pretty tough. There are too many to choose from. Probably, no, I don't know. Maybe Frasier. But is it better? Is Frasier better than Friends? I don't know. Um, uh, AK says, "All right, a more refined question." Oh my God. Favorite film adaptation of an ancient classic? What if I say Troy? Does that get me disqualified? Poetic Arson says, "It's been a good stream, Steve. Thanks for doing them." Yes, we do have to wrap things up. I'm right at the end of the question, so it's not like I'm hurting anybody. DZGIN says, "Favorite second animated movie?" 2D anime. I don't know what that means. Dylan says, "Oh, that's why Steve went off about my black market North Korean steroids." There's another Dylan M in the chat. Hope this one has seen Starship Troopers at least. Libro Paradiso says, "Man Bite Dog, a French mockumentary, is a great serial killer film." AK says, "I found the villain in Manhunter to be really scary." Maximus says, "I'm curious, why did you ever take that serial killer job?" Money. It was a really good paycheck. I ended up being darkly fascinated by it. I learned a lot about serial killers, and there might be more. I think that patron wants more money, wants to spend more money. Tara Billy says, "What do you think of A Hunger Artist by Franz Kafka? I read it last week and can't stop thinking about it. I love it, of course. Everybody does." Hannah says, "Thanks for the company tonight." AKA says, "Steve only likes Troy for Brad Pitt's abs." Well, there's someone else in Troy. It might have been my reason for watching it. Tolstoy 111 says, "I can't think of a play less cinematic than Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead." And Francisco says, "I love Frasier too. I watch the reruns all the time." And that's it. That runs out the chat at 2 hours and a half, 2.5 hours. And what did we learn from this chat? That one of the Dylans has not seen Starship Troopers, and that you should all go and buy Cuba Fruit by Alex Serrando on Amazon for an excellent reading experience. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I have to go, but it's 2.5 hours. That's long enough to settle your hash. But we'll be back. We'll do this again, maybe tomorrow night. So thank you all for being here. This was wonderful. We never go below 100 people now, so that's great. But I do have to go and tend to my bean, but I'll be back. Uh, so I'll see you then. And in the meantime, I will upload a video. So we did the mail. I will upload a video, so you'll get a little more video from me. And that ought to be enough. Good Lord. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.